I think we're actually good. Cool.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, sweet. We're good. Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so do you want to introduce what's going on here? Introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
Of course. Hi. So, guys, this is gonna be a 5-week coaching series with, of course, Mr. BSJ. I can call you Coach B, right?
You can call me whatever the hell you want,
Coach B. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue really nicely.
Makes me sound like the second best coach you could find, but I'll take it,
No, that's not true, buddy.
You got Coach A and Coach B.
It all led to this, man. So I mean, I'm super excited, dude. But yeah, Predator Philippines made this very much possible, and I'm super excited, dude. And we are starting today, and we're gonna do this for 5 weeks. And you, sir, hopefully I'm sure you're gonna help me get out of Guardian because
I hope so.
this is the current rank I'm in, and so far, from what I have is I really enjoy the way you coach because you do teach you teach principles basically, which I love, man. I love the way you coach in that sense.
Banana slam jam.
I'm gonna give you the replay IDs right now.
Okay. Cool.
1 second. I thought, but just a bit of history.
Okay.
Again, hello chat. I've never played any MOBA. Like growing up, I just I never got into Red Alert, StarCraft, or Dota 1 or Battle Realms or any RTS. So in terms of mechanics, this is really just a first for me. And I tried to get into Dota back in 2016 after hosting ESL 1 Manila, but I've been active with the Dota 2 community ever since 2012. But when it was after ESL, I was just like, okay, I should really just try to learn the game, and it's the least I could do for the community. And bro, it was so hard, man.
Dota's a hard game.
Bro, I'll be honest, I hated it, man. It was incredibly frustrating. I had no idea what I was doing. And I honestly never really got the big picture of what it takes to win a Dota game until 4 years after. I mean, I had the street. Purge taught me a few things, and he helped me get the big picture. And that's when things started becoming fun, bro. Like, when I finally got it, I'm just like, oh shit, oh, this is what it means to win games. And that's when I got it. But is it normal to like take 4 years or like just have that much frustration?
I would say so. I think the hard part about Dota, like I was gonna kind of introduce what I was going for people who've never watched my coaching sessions, or just explain to you and anyone else who's unfamiliar. I think there's a lot of information in Dota, and I think trying to process it all makes no sense. Like, you just can't, so it kind of forces this like panic reaction. And so what I've tried to teach in my coaching sessions a lot of times is not necessarily things people have never thought about or people have never heard, but it's also like I'm telling you the right things to think about. Like, at this point in the game, these are your 5 choices. You got to do one of them, but every game is going to be a bit different. This is the stuff I want you to look out for, though, because if you don't know what you're looking for, Dota's kind of just a bunch of nothing, like a bunch of everything that looks like nothing. Like, you don't actually know what you're looking at. So that's what I usually try to coach. And if I can get you thinking on your own, we kind of talked about this off cam. I can make it so that it doesn't just take me telling you. It's that you can apply whatever I'm giving you in any situation. And that's what we're trying to do here. Because if you're able to self-correct, then that's like 1 or 2 hours of coaching session can do a lot. And because it's up to you to take care of the rest. And
bro, I'm so excited, man.
Yeah.
I'm so again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're like crazy busy right now, but for you to make the time to do this,
everyone's stuck at home.
I really appreciate it.
Turns out to be more business. What can you do?
Yes, it is. Thankfully, Predator paid for the promo code with me for you, so I'm good, man.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Any final questions before we get started?
As you know, I'm playing as a support. I'm playing mainly as 5. and people have been telling me it's really hard to kind of climb the ranks. Let's say, because I'm 1K right now. I lost like freaking. I calibrated at Guardian 5, which is like 1290, I think.
Okay.
And now I'm all the way down to 1000 because I just been losing. I've been winning I've been winning unranked games. Like I had a pretty good win, but now all my ranked games I've lost. And last night, we doubled down, bro. I doubled down, and I was so sure we were gonna win because they had like wait, who was this? This was oh my god, it was like a BB, Lion, Grim, Disruptor, and we still lost. They had like, I'm just like, and we had a Meepo, Jug, Shaman, Sand King, and
your
Pug
game
Net,
should be
like,
on the Battle Pass predictions. Like this is the 1K game with Eri in it. Let's see. Who do you think won it or whatever? That'd be.
We lost, bro.
Yeah. So, I think first and foremost, I'll introduce our series with my best impression. It's obviously I've never played in 1K. Like when I played 1K, I didn't think about Dota at all. So I don't have I don't remember really. And also back then MMR didn't exist, all that kind of stuff. But what I've noticed is like the less farm you have, the overall less impact you can have in the game. Like 30 minutes into the game, if you have 6K net worth and your carry has 20K, it's like he's gonna be 3 times as important to decide the game as you are. But I also think it's really important that, from my experience supporting, if I out-support the opponent, my carry on average is going to have a better game. I'll maybe have that extra force staff, that extra glimmer, whatever. That's going to make the difference for me, not just feeding randomly. And it's not that you're going to win every game, because I don't think as support you can necessarily take over every game and do that. But if your carry gets a better game every single one than the opponent, my firm belief is that you'll win at least 60%, and that's all it takes to gain MMR. So Dota, for me, since you're only one of 10 players, this is all just kind of bullshit numbers, but I guesstimate somewhere like around 30% of games, you have no impact on whether or not you win or lose. Like, your team will carry you, or you couldn't play well enough to win the game. Like, doesn't matter. Like, some of those games, like, your teammates play so well, or your teammates play so bad, it just, like, you can't make up for it one way or the other. And my goal is to make it so you're never the guy that's causing your team to lose. Like that's if that removes 20% of games where it's your fault, right? Like, and that's what we're trying to do. So that to me results. I love that. Yeah, it results in gaining MMR, in my opinion, because there's 9 other players in the game. If the other 9 are more likely to do it, then 5 out of 9 games, the game ruiner ain't you, right? And it ain't on your team. It ain't on your team. That's how I look at it. Go ahead.
I have a question, Coach B. Yeah. Sorry about that. At, let's say, immortal level, and let's say the higher levels, let's say from the 5 to like 8K levels, can a 5 kind of influence how a game's gonna? Do they have that much impact at that high level?
I will say that from a carry player's perspective, my game is like 10 times better if my support knows what the hell they're doing. And I will tell you that if I'm a bad carry player, though, if you give me the freest game in the world and I chuck it into the dumpster, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. Okay.
The goal is, though, at 10 minutes, if I have 500 more net worth than the opponent every game because you supported me well, we're going to win more than half of them, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. So I will say that, like, the top 100 support players are, like, day and night better than ranked 500s. Like, and I'm not saying that to, like, flame everyone else in the Dota world, but I'm saying as a core player, it is quite palpable, quite easy to tell when a guy actually knows what he's doing in the support role. So as a support player, the interesting part that I'm going to find out coaching you, I'm going to see how it plays out. I think a big part of supporting is your job as a player is to make your core's games easier to play, better to play.
Yes.
Make them more survivable, make them have more farm space, give them the vision they need, whatever it takes. And every carry hero, every single one, has to be treated differently. And that's what a lot of players as supports just don't get it. I'm like, and so even though I don't play support very often, I feel like my laning stage is always really good because I just know what the core needs from me. Like, I know this carry wants to be treated this way and all that kind of stuff. He wants primarily solo XP, or they want me to babysit them and stand in front, you know? And even if I don't quite know the hero's capabilities mid to late game, maybe I could have casted spells better because I don't have too much experience on the hero. The early game is really just something you can just not mess up. Like, you can just do it correctly. And that, for me, is the main impact of supports. It's not that I'm not going to look at your later game decisions.
Yes.
But especially at your level, because I talked about with the distribution of net worth, once your teammates have way more net worth than you, your main impact in the game is the first 5 to 10 minutes. Like, if you play that flawlessly, I am 100% sure a support will gain MMR. I am like 100%. You know, will you have games where you play perfectly and lose? Absolutely. It happens to me as a carry player where I'm like 6-0 and I'm like, this game's lost. I can't win. You know.
Really?
Yeah, it happens less as a carry player. It happens less, but it will still happen. So as a support player, I think one of the best disciplines to have, and what I'm going to try to teach in our sessions, will be focusing on the things you could have done better. Some things where you're supposed to pull, and your carry just feeds in lane. And I'm like, you know, all you can do is tell him you're pulling, play safer. And if he still feeds, what I worry about from supports is that they stop pulling. Like, they stop doing what is correct because their mistake, or like their play made the carry, you know, mess up or whatever. And so I'm going to focus on telling you what these heroes need, and you're just going to have to accept the fact that even if you're doing the right thing, sometimes your carry is just going to shit the bed and die.
I got you.
But at the same time, I'm going to try to pick you heroes, and I'm going to talk about supports that will have more impact as the game goes on, because I've found if I'm supporting weaker level players, in my perspective, obviously weaker level player is different. But I want to be able to function without my cores in the game. And what I mean is that if I'm like a Bane, my only job is to like set up kills and run around the map. And if my teammates don't try to capitalize on that, I'm literally just a Bane walking around. Doing nothing, right? Like, I can't actually do anything. Yeah, exactly. So I like to pick heroes that can clear waves if I can. I like to pick heroes that have like solo playmaking potential. These
like
Shaman, Skyrath, if you have to get crazy at the 5 in terms of kills. Jakiro can like take towers, clear waves. Wyvern can take or clear waves for you. Grimstroke clears waves. You know, I'm just mentioning Rubik, you know, whatever. But you're 5, so I mentioned some 4s there. But if I'm only playing these like save or, you know, non-wave clearing supports, the minute the game gets weird, you kind of just stand there, you know? And so that's what we're going to try to avoid happening in your games. Because all I know is at 1K and the lower you go, games stop looking like Dota to me. Like, I'm like, what am I watching? Like, everything about what I know about Dota, it's not working, you know? So I want my hero to be functional around the team if possible. Like, I want your hero to be able to help. But at the same time, you're first picking your hero, right? Like, so if I'm talking to a carry player, I'm going to talk to them about drafting. I'm going to talk to them about, you know, when to pick your hero, why, based on whatever your 5 position, whatever. But for you, you pick your hero first, and you're just a complete mercy of your teammates to hope their heroes go with yours, you know, or whatever. So best case scenario, your team pick heroes that work well with yours, and you play around them. But worst case scenario, they don't, and your hero will still have some sort of function
impact.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're basing this on the kind of draft that usually happens at this level. You're like, they don't really, matchups is not really something that's thought about. I mean, as you know, heroes that synergize together is not really thought about. Because I mean, with me, sometimes it's like it's an all carry lineup. I mean, you know, with SEA, so sometimes you do get that. Yeah,
and that's why. That's mainly why I want your hero to be self-sufficient, because there's the weird way to describe Dota, especially if people are super new, is some heroes have like one way they have to play the game. Like, if it's a really good game for the hero, you pick it, it plays the game that way, and if the game's played that way, the hero wins. If the game is played any other way, that hero just does nothing. Like, it just flops. And then there's other heroes that kind of like, they can play 4 or 5 different ways. Like, they can be like these are more of the flex lane picks, in the cores. Some heroes can be played mid, safe lane, or off lane sometimes. And the point is, if you pick those heroes, then regardless of what your team does, you'll figure something out to do. You're not relying on a specific game plan. It's like if you pick Oracle and your team doesn't pick anyone that relies on the save and benefits from your save, now like you're just an Oracle. Like, what now? Yeah. But on the same time, Jakiro will always take towers. He'll always push waves. He's always a little bit of team fight. He's always a decent laner. It's like, I think Jakiro's like a really good example of a hero like this. So if I pull up these replays and you gave me replays of heroes that don't fit this description, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not trying to like micromanage people's hero pool, but I'll also tell you the limitations of your hero. So like I've had people come to me saying, BSJ, as a support, my team just never pushes. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I think you should pick heroes that can push, right? Or it's like, my team never kills anybody. What do I do? I'm like, maybe you should prioritize supports that have stuns, And just knowing that if you're a Lion and your team never wants to take towers, maybe you should stop picking Lion for the foreseeal future. Pick a hero that...
I love Lion. It's so funny. I love Lion.
I see it on my profile here. I have Dota pulled up, so I can see that your highest Dota Plus level is Lion. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah, Lion's a good example of a hero that can make plays, but he's never taken tower. No. So... okay. Are you ready to pull up our first replay, or do you have any more questions?
Yes, I am. First of all, coming from what we spoke about, can you give me coming from being able to maneuver, regardless of what situation I'm at, in my games, what are the top 3 heroes you feel I should focus on, just coming from that?
I think you should always have one of your top 3 heroes be your favorite hero. So if it's Lion, is Lion your favorite?
Used to be, but right now I was told that Line 5 is just not where it's at. So I do want to play around the meta, or just at least play around a hero that I know can consistently perform. Okay. I'm at that place where everything is just so much fun to learn, so I'm kind of just learning many different heroes, which is nice. So
go ahead.
I'm good to kind of just focus on something that's given to me. If it gives me like a better chance to perform consistently, regardless of how the game goes, then I'm gonna learn that hero, bro. Okay.
Then I'm not gonna go based off of pro meta, for instance, because I'm gonna talk about like pro meta right now. 2 of the most popular supports are Oracle and Grimstroke. I don't think those heroes are heroes you pick at your bracket.
I love Oracle. I pick Oracle a good amount sometimes.
Hey, you know what? And if you want Oracle and he's a meta hero, I'm glad for you to pick him. I'm simply saying that to the average player, I wouldn't recommend Oracle simply because if you have teammates that aren't making use of your hero, like if I have an Oracle on my team as a carry player, I know my limits are like extended drastically, right? I know that being able to like purge stuns and silences off of me and save me if I'm super low health makes it so I can play whatever hero I'm playing completely differently. But if your teammates aren't playing more aggressively and relying on you to protect them, then your hero just serves no purpose, really. Like, and it's not something within your control. Like, that's the point, is if your teammates aren't playing around you, then your hero doesn't like that. So, like, heroes that come to mind for me, not because they're super meta, but because I think they fit my description, are Jakiro, Crystal Maiden. Jakiro. Crystal Maiden, I think, is really good for this. And then...
Really?
Yes. And then, if I had to say a third one, it would be... So those 2 heroes have no stuns. So if you're running into like stun, they do have stuns, but they're kind of like follow-up stuns, not like the setup stuns.
BSJ Dota.
I would probably say Shaman, even though he's not the best hero right now. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, I love Shaman.
Yeah, all these heroes fit a description where if their team's not doing anything, they can go, like CM can go hit some neutrals behind her carry, Jakiro can go clear waves, Shaman can look to use his wards to kill towers, maybe look for pickoffs. They have options, right? These heroes have options where most people know what they do. Your teammates don't have to know what they're doing to benefit from a 2-mana regen aura. Like, they don't have to know what they're doing. With Shaman, you're just a lot of disable, so it's pretty easy to say, hey guys, I'm going to stun this guy, kill him.
We're going to kill this.
It's not complicated to play around as your teammates. And I think catering to your own teammates, not necessarily saying act like your team's stupid and play accordingly, but with your hero pick, like I know for a fact there's certain carries I feel way more comfortable picking when my support players like top 100. Like I know they'll support me perfectly. I know I rely on that in the laning stage based on my hero. And then I know there's heroes that if I don't have the right supports, I have to just pick independently functioning carries because like if I need to be protected, I can't rely on players that are much lower ranked. So in your case, we're going the reverse. You know, we're taking it from the support perspective. I don't want you to have to play a core or have to play a support that relies on your core knowing exactly what your hero does in order to make use of it. So, what replays did you bring to me today? Out of curiosity, like what heroes do you have?
I just thought that it would be nice to play, because like just last night we had like a 4-game win streak, but those were all with like players much higher than me.
Okay.
And I was told that you don't really get to learn as much or improve or see what you need in your game if you play with people who might end up carrying you. And I felt that they actually were just carrying me.
Yeah.
So I have two that I could possibly kind of hand over.
Okay.
My last game, I honestly love Pugna. Pugna is so much fun.
Yeah, Pugna's a gaming hero, man. Pugna's a fun one.
He's so fun, man. I like, it was love at first Q with him, man. He was just like insane. He's low cooldowns. I was just having so much fun doing stuff. Like,
hey man, I can put Pugna in that list. Like he kind of does his own thing. If you want that to be Pugna instead of like Shaman, for instance, or instead of Jakiro, like because they both push towers, I'm fine with that. I think Pugna, he benefits from players that play around him. But then at the same time, his only weakness is he's obviously super squishy. But a lot of supports obviously, suffer that problem.
Yes.
The big issue I have with heroes like Pugna is like if your team's really far behind, what do you do?
You can't do much.
Yeah, like you don't set up ganks. You only take towers if your teammates are pushing them for you and you show up to push it.
Yeah.
But once again, every support has weaknesses that if not taken care of kind of just happen. So I'm fine if you want to pick a support like Pugna. He's fun.
Coach B, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is Crystal Maiden so good for you? Because I mean, she has, I mean, she's pretty squishy.
Okay.
Slow movement speed in the beginning, but also almost the same movement speed as Lion actually. But why do you find Crystal Maiden so good? I just want to understand because I've never played her much.
Okay, yeah, no, it's interesting. So I don't think Crystal Maiden's particularly amazing in the current patch, right? But I think I've had a lot of success with her in the patch. I have seen her win games in my bracket recently, I don't think she's completely garbage. So, and for me, the thing about Crystal Maiden is she can clear waves, she can jungle, she can be like a nice follow-up ganker. Like if any of your teammates go first, you can follow up with your nuke into a frostbite, into an ultimate. She actually scales with items. Like, if you give her some mobility or, like, a BKB with her ult, if she's BKB ulted, she can actually carry team fights. And so it's and she also benefits her team by existing. So it's like...
The passive mana.
Yeah. And so, like, a lot of heroes do benefit from it, even if they don't notice it in your bracket. Like, the guy will just have more mana without really... Like, he won't know how to push his limits perfectly with a Crystal Maiden. But having 2 mana regen, it never hurts, right? I've just had a lot of success with Crystal Maiden when I was learning support myself. Like, right when I started trying to play support, like, and trying to be more flexible in my role about, like, a year and a half or two ago, Crystal Maiden was one of the first heroes, just because she's pretty straightforward in lane, also. She walks over and nukes, but she's relatively squishy, so you want to spend a lot of time pulling and being careful. But, like, your help is simple. You go pull... You go nuke. You go pull, you go nuke. You walk back and forth between the lane doing that. Her build-up's pretty straightforward. She gets Tranquils. She pretty much never runs out of mana. And then you can also, her like first 1 or 2 items can help you practice itemization a lot. Whether or not you get a couple bracers, because no matter what positioning you have, you're going to die because they have like a Storm Spirit or something. If they have a Slark, you buy a Force Staff. If they have a lot of magic burst, maybe you go that Glimmer Cape. It's like she can help you practice itemization without it being... I think she's mechanically pretty easy too. So it's like...
Yes, she is.
It's not exact... Okay, so I kind of mentioned this at the start, and I know we're talking about a lot here, but my goal is I don't want anyone trying to get better at Dota, including yourself, obviously, to be way overwhelmed with anything. So I usually try to isolate 1 to 2 things at a time, and I say, okay, work on this first, then work on this. Once you feel confident in that, move on. I don't think it's possible to be like a 5K mechanical player and a 500 MMR conceptual player. Like, both will kind of grow together, but I want you to grow. Like, there are players who are way better conceptually or way better mechanically, but if we can get you doing I want you to be a 3K level laner, and then once I feel like your laning stage is really good, I'll start to notice that you'll always win your lane. Like, this is what happens in my coaching sessions. They always win their lane, but then sometime after 15 minutes, they throw terribly. So, whether it's a support or a core player, I'll be like, okay, so yeah, your laning MMR definitely is like above where you're at. You're fine on laning. We don't have to look at that very much. So let's move on to like your mid-game warding or, rotations or whatever, itemization. And then we can focus on that. And it's all I know from extensive experience of coaching, it's usually pretty damn obvious why somebody's suffering. Certain things you can't teach until they've learned other things. So, sometimes I have people that their laning stage is just so bad that, say, for a carry player, I'm like, I can't teach you how to play the mid game because your Battle Fury is coming at 20 minutes instead of 14. The game, I'm not going to try to teach you how to play with a Battle Fury that you got at 20 minutes. I'm going to try to teach you how to get that Battle Fury at 14, and then we can start talking about what you do once you get the Battle Fury.
I got you.
Same with supports, right? If your carry is having a good lane every game, and I feel like you did your job, then we're not going to talk much about laning, right? But if I watch you in lane and I see a bunch of mistakes, which, to be honest, I'm going to.
Please be brutally honest.
Yeah, I will be brutally kind. All that kind of stuff.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I loved it. So just to gather the main point of what we just spoke about, Coach B. I like it. It has a ring to it.
Yeah, it's just nice. A first. It's funny. It's funny.
I was gonna say Coach Banana, Coach Jamma. No,
Coach Jamma.
Yeah, I was like, Coach B sounds good. Let's go with Coach B. Okay. Judging from what I'm getting, and I mean, for people at my rank, and if everyone at chat, watching, basically, the kind of heroes you pick, your first initial pool will influence how much you learn, because you're saying the biggest thing that's gonna get in the way is being overwhelmed with something, right? And you want to avoid that. So basically, if you pick certain heroes that get you to just focus on specific things that you feel is productive and it's going to help you move forward in general, just picking those 3 heroes is going to set you apart from other people at my level. Picking.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny that you mentioned that. So first and foremost, I was to use an incredibly extreme example, if somebody's learning to play mid, I would not tell them to practice Tinker or Invoker. That's not the hero I would tell them to start with, because on those 2 heroes specifically, there's so many things that are unique to those heroes that you won't learn. The lessons you learn on the heroes won't apply to other heroes. And then also, you're going to be so focused on pushing your buttons correctly that you'll become a really good Invoker player, but not much else. So I would rather you learn the mechanically simpler heroes that are conceptually straightforward. I think Oracle conceptually is incredibly hard. I actually think Oracle conceptually as a hero is very difficult. You have to worry about who you're going to save, who you're sitting behind, your own positioning, what kills you, do you use your ultimate on yourself or somebody else, what order of spells do you cast? It's
so many decisions.
There's a lot of decisions to make on Oracle. And so it's if you can learn positioning on a hero like Crystal Maiden, because that's really her main issue. Her spells are pretty straightforward. But you sit in the back casting them, and you the button pressing's pretty simple. You're never using your W on anyone other than the enemy, right? You're never using your Q other than on anyone on the enemy. Your ult, you stand still, right? It's you don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. But you have to make sure you don't just die right at the start of the fight. So on Crystal Maiden, it helps a lot with other heroes that also focus on positioning but maybe require other things. So I realized that there were some heroes There still are some, but there were a pretty good amount of heroes that just didn't click for me. Like I was like, I just can't play this hero. And I realized later that after I came back to them, maybe a year later, and I had learned better positioning or better laning or whatever, that hero, which required those skills to be good at, because I think every hero has like somewhere between 3 to like 10 core skills that are required to be good at them. I was just able to play that hero pretty decently next time I came back to it. I was like, like this hero requires positioning, or this hero requires passive farming, or this hero requires, never going in lanes, because if I show in lanes, I'll just die because I'm so fragile or squishy or whatever. And understanding when to go to lanes and when not to on other heroes made me a better player on that hero. So I've obviously never talked to you about this stuff, but I do believe like certain skills will always carry over. Positioning is a perfect skill to practice as a support player. I think Jakiro, his positioning matters, but obviously he's much tankier than Crystal Maiden. Hero like Shaman, his positioning matters too, but at the same time, he's a hero that like puts himself at risk to do anything, because all of his spells until he gets Aetherlands are super low cast range. He has to sit there, channeling shackles. So he's like, I would say, a slightly harder version of Crystal Maiden, because all of her cast ranges are pretty far. She doesn't have to the only thing she channels is her ult, which also gives her armor, so it makes her, it's like pretty obvious when you ult on Crystal Maiden. Someone goes on you and you just go, oh shit, give myself armor, make them take damage, that kind of stuff. So I've said a lot, but any other questions? I know you've had good questions so far, so.
No, I like that. Basically, there's so much to learn with Dota, so at least give yourself heroes that at least is going to get you to focus, that only needs you to focus on certain things and not overwhelm you with like things. So picking your heroes does make a good impact. So coming from that, I think Jakiro, Crystal Maiden, and Shaman are good threes. I love Jakiro. Okay, so coming from that, I have two things that two types of replays. I do have a Jakiro game recently.
Okay.
And it's the first time I've played the hero, or I think just the second time that I played him.
Okay.
Because I needed to play Jakiro for my captain role.
Of course.
So that was one. And I have the most recent Pugna game that I have here, which also I feel reflects my current decision making. Okay. This was after we lost pretty bad. We had like a really tilting loss.
Okay.
So the game after, I was just trying to do a bunch of things that I said, okay, you made these sort of mistakes. That wasn't very good. So if you want to assess, just because this is people at my level at ranked, and honestly, guys, chat. This is pretty bad. This is not something...
They're all expecting it to be bad, and if they've watched my coaching before, they've seen plenty of bad games.
It's really bad.
So I appreciate the disclaimer, but that's why we're here, right? We're trying to get better.
Yeah, we were all noobs once. Okay. Do you want to see my most recent Pugna game, or do you want to see the Jakiro one?
Let's see the Jakiro one first, and seeing how much time we have left, we can... We'll see how much we go into the Pugna game. I think I want to make sure I give you the Jakiro game so that in the next week you can have a very clear idea of what I want you to focus on as Jakiro. But then on the Pugna game, we can talk about concepts that you can apply to Pugna, absolutely, and if you want to do that, great. But we'll also focus on concepts that apply to all supports on that specific.
Okay.
So it'll give us good content there.
Yeah, I love that. I think just kind of what we spoke about within the first half an hour is already extremely valuable. So I'm just going to focus on these three heroes. That's it. And then eventually... once I learn the things that need to learn, then I can maybe just move on to more complicated
absolutely.
heroes.
That's exactly what the plan is. So, like, if I feel like your positioning and all this kind of stuff has gotten good, I can be like, well, this hero requires all three of those skills. Go at it, that kind of thing.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that. I'm super game with that, bro. Okay. So, right now, I'll give you the match ID.
Okay. Yeah, you can send it. You can actually send it on Steam if you want, because then I don't have to change my stuff on Discord. I added you on Steam, by the way. I don't know if you accepted yet.
I will add. I will accept. I'm accepting BSJ. Oh,
cool.
Oh. What is your? Wait, I can't. On Dota, right?
Yeah, on Dota I added you. If it didn't work, then you can add me.
Are you KS? Are you Big Daddy?
I'm just BSJ. I'm just BSJ, man. That's all. I am not Big Daddy. That's funny.
I just had to say, I see the banana.
Okay.
Totally random thing, Coach B. Since I mean, I'm guessing you're a fan of bananas, correct? You
I like
enjoy
bananas.
the fruit.
I enjoy bananas.
Have you ever tried bananas with peanut butter?
I have.
Okay,
Most
great.
fruits go very well with peanut butter. Apples, bananas.
That's good.
You're a big fan here.
Yeah. Yeah, I
go
mentioned it to Toby, and he asked if I was pregnant. I was like, "Are you pregnant?" I'm like, "No, it's actually a wonderful combination, Toby." And he's like, and I was trying to convince him the whole time, and he didn't budge.
Yeah, Toby's definitely a little bit stubborn, so let him have his views and just enjoy his hypecasting and go from there.
Yes, that's right. Okay, sir. So I'll give you I'll send it over in the Dota client. 1 second.
Yeah, you can send it in party if you want.
And the good thing about this is we were all pretty much at the same level. So it's like I was playing with a Guardian as well, a Crusader, and Crusader. So at least, it wasn't like one player just carrying the hell out of us, which I think is always good.
Yeah, the problem with people being in different skill levels, like playing with people way above them or way below them, is it's hard to teach you, like, say I'm teaching a 5K player that's like playing with his 2K friends or something. It's like really hard to be like, you'll get punished for this if you do it this way in like a good game. Like this isn't something that'll work at your bracket, and I can't prove it to him. How do I tell you that because these 3Ks aren't doing it, it won't work. And then on the vice versa, it's hard to tell people like their impact on the game could have been higher when they're just getting carried anyway. That's like the opposite of that spectrum. So. You are Jakiro here. You guys do win, but I will tell everybody who hasn't watched my coaching sessions, I don't care if it's a win or a loss. Like, I actually just...
It's what I did in the laning
stage. It's all about what your contribution to the game was. 1 second. I have alerts on that I thought were off. I'm going to attempt to go slow, because usually I feel a bit rushed knowing that the person I'm coaching isn't coming back. But I know...
we have 5
Yeah, we have 5 weeks. We got 5
weeks. Take your time, buddy. And I think this is like an interesting dynamic you wanted to explore as well, right? You were just like, hey, I've never coached like this much session, so I'm actually really excited to see how that works as well.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah, I think it's going to be quite an interesting experience for me because I'll get to really see like your progress over the course of the week. So, first and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about starting items at a very basic, but yet this is a concept that could be used for like 3-4K players too. Like this is a concept that never stops being used. So every game I go into, I ask myself, who do I think I'm laning against? And what are their strengths and weaknesses? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What am I scared of happening to me? Like what's the worst case scenario? Like is this a kill lane? Is this the lane that does a lot of damage over time? Like they kind of poke me down? Is this a lane where, if I step out in the lane, I just die? Like this kind of stuff I think about. What kind of damage is it? Is it spell casting, so I maybe want to stick? Is it them running at me, so maybe I need movement speed? How much do I plan to cast my spells? Like how much mana will I need? I'm just giving you like things to start thinking about going into a lane.
I love it.
So first and foremost,
I'm writing this down.
At a very random level, I'll talk about carries. So, Ricky, super high base HP regen, like, really never has sustain issues. So, like, if I'm a Ricky carry, I would never want a headdress in my lane, because I just don't need a headdress. Like, if you look at Ricky's base HP regen, before your headdress, it's like 7.5. Like, where
can I see that?
Right here.
Is that it?
Yeah, right down here.
That's your regen.
Yeah, he is beneath a tower, so he's getting a little bit of bonus. But Ricky has very high HP regen. I think it's like 6. Like with very high HP regen. So
wait, let me see that. Oh shit, you're right, dude.
Yeah, it's
that's base HP regen. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like for instance, Terrorblade has like 1.8, while Ricky has 5 or 6. So giving like a Terrorblade the headdress HP regen would be like twice as like doubling his health, while with a Ricky, it doesn't really. It's like 40%. Like it's not as much of an increase. So these are not things I expect you to know. Okay, like that's a major emphasis I'm giving, but it doesn't hurt to start looking. If I'm supporting Ricky this game, if I'm supporting Ricky, And I'm against a lane of Slardar Centaur. So, like, that's what I think I'm against here. It could be Disruptor Slardar, it could be Disruptor Centaur. I'll tell you how I look at this lane and for things for you to focus on. I see heroes, probably Disruptor, or Centaur Slardar. These two heroes hit a lot. All of Slardar's spells are physical. And Centaur's retaliate damage, which is his main source of damage, he does have a stun. But early game, most of their damage is physical. So if I had a carry whose armor is like 1, like their base armor is 1, I would want a buckler. Like I would probably buy a buckler for them. Like I had SVG supporting me the other day on Coddle. I don't think I've ever seen a Coddle get a buckler, but I was a low armor carry against 2 physical damage offlaners, and he bought a first item buckler, and I was like, wow, that's like really good.
That's so sweet.
But on Ricky, his base armor is 5, so. Not concerned about that. You know, if we're looking at Ricky compared to Monkey King, for instance, if you go to About tab, his base armor is 1.5. So that's like, that's really bad. So maybe if you had a Monkey King carry,
so useful.
Right?
I love it. Okay.
We're considering like bucklers, headdresses. This is why I'm telling you every carry hero needs to be treated differently, right? Because every carry hero has different strengths and weaknesses. So with Ricky, the thing about Ricky is that he doesn't really do much like level 1 and 2. Like, he doesn't need much help, because look, he has really high damage, he has really high HP regen, but he doesn't really help you very much, because all of his damage comes from right-clicking, and that doesn't get better until he gets more items, right?
Coach B, sorry, what did you mean by he doesn't really help me very much?
Okay, if Slardar Centaur go on you, what does Ricky do to help you?
He'll walk and right click.
Yeah, as opposed to like a Wraith King who can walk up and stun the guy who's going on you. So like a Wraith King could help you. Like maybe an Ursa could help you because he's really scary. Like he's scary to the opponent. I usually say like that's a good question by the way. I say like if your carry is a huge threat, that's a way of them helping you. Because if they have to go through your carry to get to you, suddenly that changes everything. And you'll be like, hey man, just go on these guys. You know, they're out of position, kill them. But it's like if you have a Ricky and you're like, help me. And he's like, blink. And then watch you die. You know, that's like what. That's...
let me go let me go invisible.
Exactly. Yeah.
They can't see me.
Yeah, they can't see me. They're gonna kill you instead. Okay.
Mind games. Yeah.
Secondly, when I think so, I've talked about buckler a bit. I've talked about headdress a bit. Now let's talk about the number 1 support item that nobody ever gets when I look at low MMRs. Windlace. What a beautiful item Windlace is, okay?
Movement speed.
Movement speed is the most underrated aspect of Dota for lower level players in general. So my question for you would be, is if you're gonna die, or if you're scared of taking damage from Slardar Centaur, how do they do damage to you? In general. Like,
but just by going to me and just committing to
literally
me. Literally
walking at you, right? And they're gonna have to be point blank range to hitting you. A nice contrast to this would be, no matter how well you position yourself, a Skywrath Mage is going to do damage to you.
Yes.
Right? So, like, movement speed against a Skywrath Mage doesn't do all that much, because no matter how fast you are, you're still getting Arcane Bolted, and you're still taking random instances of damage. So, like, a Windlace, not all that great against a hero like Skywrath. But if you buy a Windlace against, like, the Slardars and the Centaurs, it's almost like a survivability sustain item, because they do less damage to you if they can't hit you, right? So this is a lane where I would probably start with a Windlace, and then I would probably start with just, I don't need to help Ricky with my items. So I look at my hero and I'm like, okay, he doesn't need help with my items. That's my first thought. You know, my carry hero doesn't need my items. Second off, I now worry about myself, right? Let's focus on myself here. I'm scared of Slardar Centaur walking at me, so I'm going to buy a Windlace. But to also make it so they can't walk at me as well, I'm going to cast my Dual Breath a lot, because it's a slow, it slows their attack speed, does damage. So I'm going to want to keep using that. So maybe having 2 or 3 Clarities and 2 Mangoes in my inventory. So suddenly I've got Windlace and like 150 gold worth of mana. So now I've got like 200 gold left. And at that point, you just buy Regen, right? You just buy...
Tango.
Yeah, like Tangos and a Salve, 2 Tangos, whatever. I will say that you should try to get in the habit of giving your mid laner Tangos. I don't know if people do that at your bracket.
I always do. I always do.
Did you give them here? Because you have 3. That's why I was asking.
I did not because I bought a headdress.
Okay, I see.
If I buy what I usually buy, I would. But even if, let's say, I buy 1 Tango, should I give 2 of those and just have 1 Tango?
I will say, in my bracket at least, it is not treated as an option to give your mid laner Tangos. Like, that's not a choice. Like, you just have to.
You just give them Tangos.
So like, so I've done it where, like, if I go boots and a set of Tangos, I do have boots and 1 Tango. Like, that is what I have in my starting item.
Okay. I got it. I will write that down.
The important thing, though, is if you feel like because you went this big item, like a buckler, like a headdress, like boots, if you don't feel like you have enough regen, your first item you buy should just be regen, right? Because everyone has their own courier. You don't have to worry about like stealing your courier from the mid or anything. The first item you can fly yourself is more Tangos, or salve or whatever. Yeah. So that's where. Like, that's only going to come into play if you buy these big items, which is fine. That's going to happen sometimes, but okay.
So coming from that, if this is a higher bracket, you bought headdress and you're not giving me Tangos, what kind of
I would be flaming the shit out of you. I'd be like, what? Like, what?
Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Weren't you raised properly as a child? Like,
exactly. I'd just be like, my 5 positions griefing me is what I'd be.
Don't you have enough?
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
So I did talk a lot about starting items, but I want to be clear to you and everyone that's watching that I believe starting items tell me everything about how you think this lane's going to go. Like,
I love it.
It's your portrait of what you think you're going to have to do in this lane. If you have a lot of mana items, you're telling me you're casting your spells a lot. If you have a windlace, that means you think the movement speed will help you do whatever job you're helping. It's like if you have a headdress, it means you think you're in like a sustain heavy lane where you just have to help your carry sustain through. Yeah. And I look at a Slardar Centaur lane, and they're either doing really nothing or killing you. Like, that's how I look at those 2 heroes. So buying, like, sustain trading items doesn't really do much against those types of heroes. So making sure I just don't get caught out and die is, like, my #1 priority when I see heroes like that. So, if you are on, like, the general right track, it's like this is why I say this is a concept that applies to all brackets. Like at the 7K level, 8K level, this is something you still have to think about.
I love this.
But I just want you to do it better than 1K players. You know, like I don't. It doesn't need to be perfect, right?
Baby steps.
Okay, baby steps. So now that we've analyzed the shit out of your starting items, let's go ahead and watch a bit. So we'll fast forward, make sure we get past. Okay.
Coach B, really quickly. I just thought this is an important thing to highlight. If obviously this is the case where starting items are so important and helps me. Hey, we got the kill.
Yeah.
Is so important in the beginning. Then I need to learn matchups, right?
Yes.
I need to learn all. So what would you say are the things I need to worry about first and start so that I make better decisions? Let's if you're gonna teach me a principle, or a habit that's gonna help me make better starting item decisions, and because I know all these matchups, how would you say would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I think the first and foremost thing is stemming from your hero. So that's why I want you to primarily like maybe play 5 games of Jakiro in a row, then play 5 games of Pugna or 5 games of Shaman. Like I want you to first and foremost play the same hero every time because
that makes sense.
Rather
than trying to learn every combination, it's not practical because you're only playing these heroes.
Absolutely,
correct?
yes. So what? Remember, one thing how I said like every skill applies to different heroes and every stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
The way I look at the laning stage is everything that goes right or wrong applies differently to every hero. So like on Undying, you're never afraid of like positioning and dying. Like that's not what skill it takes to be good at Undying. So your starting items never have to be concerned about dying. Right? On Jakiro, it's like when I look at Jakiro, for instance, I think to myself, his main concerns are like 4 positions, maybe like Slardar or Clockwork that can kind of just get in front of his face and threaten to kill him. And then also his dual breath is very expensive, very, very mana intensive spell that you want to be able to cast. So I run into mana issues a ton on Jakiro. So a lot of times in the early game, I will focus on having a lot more mana regen if possible. But like the only reason I would skimp on mana regen is if I felt like I absolutely needed something else for my carry, right? Because I told you, worry about your carry first, yourself second.
And then you next.
And then, but then the main way to learn, there's actually just no better way to learn than to just pay attention. So you come into this laning stage with a guess, right? You said, I wanted headdress and I wanted clarities. And it's like, if you're dying because you're just getting ran at, you should be like, oh, in this matchup, I was getting ran at a lot. I should have prioritized movement speed a bit earlier. Or I casted 2 dual breaths and I was full health and felt really strong, but I just had no mana, right? It's like, what did this headdress do for me if I have full health and no mana? And it's like, I have all of these clarities and mangoes against a Skywrath who just, I'm at 100 health with full mana. It's like, what do I do now? I have 100 health and full mana. It's like, I can't do anything. So it's like, there's issues that every hero has. And if you go into the laning stage with a guess, like of what's going to happen, you will start to just run into issues randomly, and you just have to be like, okay, I needed more mana regen going into this lane, or I needed movement speed, or I needed health sustain. I'd like to make a guess of what's going to happen. It's at the basic level, it can be as simple as I'm scared of dying by a windlace and a bunch of mana. You know, like that's what I like. That could be your most basic thing. I'm scared. Like I'm just scared of dying. Like it's like at a basic level, if I'm looking at Slardar Centaur, I don't know too much about these heroes. Like let's just say you're new to Dota, but like I look at them and say they're both melee. Like Centaur's stun is point blank range, and they're both melee, and Slardar's stun point blank range, and he's melee. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be getting nuked like crazy. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be pushed out of lane because they're harassing me. I'm going to get walked at by 2 melee guys with a stun. And I don't know exactly what my limits are. You know, maybe I can trade down to half health and be survivable. But if you're dying to stuff, like if you're completely unfamiliar with a hero, was it because you couldn't run away from them? Was it because they cast a ton of spells on you and you died over the course of 2 minutes and you're like, oh, I just have no health at 3 minutes in, now I'm dead, you know? What is going wrong? Go ahead.
So a good question to ask yourself that's going to get you to pay attention, I guess. A general question you can always ask is kind of like, what went wrong?
Yes,
I guess?
absolutely. Like whenever I go into a lane, I say, what do I think's going to go wrong? And then if it goes wrong anyways, like I try to itemize or skill around it, I'm like, what could I have done better? Was it my positioning? So usually I ask myself first, like, could my items of skills been different? So like, if I was Necrophos with his Ghost Shroud and I'm dying to a guy right-clicking me a bunch, could I have considered leveling Ghost Shroud at like earlier into the game? Like that's like a perfect example. Or like with Pugna, could I have considered Decrep level 1 if I was really scared of them right-clicking me a lot or whatever? And if there's no option with your items or levels, usually that means you just had to play it differently. Like that just means you were too far forward, or you had half health and you tried to trade and you had to have full health.
It was your play style. It was your play style.
It was your play style, exactly.
If items, and I'm going to write this down because this is
important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And skills, if items and skills weren't an issue, it was your play style.
Yeah. It's something you did. And that's the problem with Dota, is there's so many things that can go wrong that oftentimes when you die, or even when things go right, like I've had coaching sessions where I'm like, yeah, this is a really good move for this, and this reason. And the guy will be like, but I just did it. Like, I didn't think about any of that shit. I just did it. You know, and it worked. I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I'm trying to tell you why it worked, so maybe next time you can, do it again. But okay. Yeah. So
I was having a chat where some 5K, 6K players don't even, like, let's say they're just so mechanically gifted that they don't even know, like, why certain things work. Like, they're the way they look. I was talking to Elevated, and he was, like, saying some just don't even understand the basic big picture of what it takes to win a game. They're just that mechanically gifted, and they pick good heroes that win games.
So this is an argument that I sometimes get in my channel, where people will be like, BSJ, like, there's players that clearly have no conceptual knowledge of Dota, and they're like 6K. Why do I need your coaching? So my point is that a lot of Dota is just experience, like understanding a matchup, understanding your hero's limits, all that kind of stuff. And all of this is naturally learned by playing. Like, you will learn it if you play. But if I tell you what to look for and I tell you what to think about, you're just going to recognize these things knowingly rather than just adjusting instinctually, you know? You're right. So my goal is to make it so that if you could fix your laning stage, normally maybe it'd take 500 games, but maybe I can get you to do it in 100, you know? Maybe like that.
I would love that.
That's my goal. So if I can get you to recognize why your mistakes are happening, I can't prevent you from making them. Like it's gonna happen. You have to learn the hard way in Dota. That's kind of how it is.
Of course, but I'm learning that the hard way.
It's punishing. It's punishing. Like when you mess up, you're like shit. My goal is that you don't just mess up and be like, I have no idea how to prevent that from ever happening again. Like it'll just happen randomly again 10 games later, and that's like what I'm trying to prevent. So it's like if you have a laning stage where you're getting ran at by heroes like Centaur and Slardar, I better see a fucking win lace in your inventory. You know, like I will
in the next
game.
Yeah.
In the next one, right? Like that's the goal. That's what we're aiming for.
I love this. Yeah. So lastly, just to end on an important point, basically general questions that people in my level that can ask themselves always if they're gonna review what went is what do I think is going to go wrong? What went wrong? Could my items and skills have been different?
Absolutely.
Those three questions, and it makes sense because items and skills are an essential part of every hero, and there are specific skills per hero, so that makes sense. You'll always be using skills and items, absolutely. And if items and skills weren't an issue, it was most probably your playstyle. It was something you chose to do that ended up giving you that result.
Absolutely. And so, like a perfect example with like a skill build being a limitation. If you look at Jakiro's skills. 135 mana, pretty expensive.
That is.
90 mana isn't exactly expensive, but if you couple that with this...
I'm Jewish, that's expensive.
You just can't cast both of these spells. Like, these two spells, level 1 and 2, like, you're going to have 400 mana. And if you cast them both twice, you're out of mana suddenly. So, like, a perfect example on Jakiro is, like, 99% of the time, you're going level 1 Dual Breath and level 2 Liquid Fire, simply because you don't have the mana to cast both of these spells that early into the game, right? And this spell is free. Every hero has like a degree of this, so I've seen it where, simply put, a guy will have no point, like he'll have all of his points in his mana-intensive spells, and I'm like, well, you just can't cast them. It doesn't matter if you level
them early.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a simple version of like a skill build being a problem. So let's see here. So. One thing, if possible, to focus on, like it's very basic, is if you can figure it out, like, don't have your nuke hit the creeps. So, notice how you're dual breathing to harass, which is great, that's what your hero's supposed to do. But if you nuke the creeps, it's going to push the lane out. And in general, at the most basic level, the safe lane wants the lane to be, like, right near tower. As close to tower as possible, and anything that changes that is usually bad. So
because what happens is just to try to follow your thought is if you're already close to the tower, you're gonna be worrying about CS, and your team the enemies are free to harass you.
I'm saying if the lane's at your tower, you don't have to worry about dying, right? Because your tower gives you 1 HP regen and 3 armor. So first off, them hitting you at all doesn't hurt as much. But second off. Like, if Centaur and Slardar want to try to kill you, they're diving your tower to do it. So the closer the lane is to your tower, the less you two are scared of dying. In reverse, if the lane's near their tower, they're not afraid of dying. So, like, if you, notice how the way you killed... How did you kill Slardar at the rune, right? It was you dual breathing and Ricky hitting him. He was really slow, and you guys were chasing him. That's not possible if the lane is right here. Like, it's not possible to do that. And it's the same thing for them. The way they're going to kill you is by stunning you a bunch and walking at you. And if you're right next to your tower like you are right now, they can't kill you. Because,
they can't come in.
But if you... Go ahead.
Sorry, but dual breath in terms of killing my creeps or their creeps, right? Because if they... Okay, I got it. Sorry. It was just a silly question. Anyway.
No, I always feel free to ask, because, like, for me, sometimes I don't remember what you guys don't know, you know? Sometimes, for me, I've, like, known it for so long or whatever that I forget that I ever had to learn it, you know? That kind of thing.
Okay.
Obviously not meant to be condescending. But this is a perfect example of showing your starting items, as I mentioned at the start, where at 36 seconds in, you have absolutely full health, no mana. So like next time around on Jakiro, you buy more mana. And if you play 5 to 10 games of Jakiro, I would hope at the end of those, your health and mana balance will be better, right? Like
I'm gonna play 5 to 10 games this week.
Exactly,
next week,
and my goal would be, I would hope they would be a better balance, right? And then from there,
I will give you good balance.
There, perfect, great. So like maybe you could have walked to the top trees and then cast your dual breath on the centaur rather than casting them through the creeps. But okay, so let's go ahead and keep focusing here. So I think the most important thing to note is that a general rule of thumb, if the lane's pushed out, that's almost always bad. So if the lane's pushed out, our two choices are to fight them because they're able to fight us. So we can fight them because we're away from our tower, which implies I think our lane's really good. Like I think we're a strong lane, and I think if we fight them head on, we'll win. Or to fix the lane, meaning to pull it back. So right now, every time I see the lane pushing, like this, like see how the lane's out front, you have more creeps than they do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I ask myself, do I pull or do I fight them? Like, which one do I want to do? And I will choose to fight them if I think I am capable of doing so. So I'll make an educated guess saying, I think we fight them, and do that. If I don't think we can fight them, I immediately walk over to pull. And I want that pull to be at a minute 15. This is a really important question to ask yourself, because if you can get that pull off at a minute 15, we'll worry about that later. But do you know the pull times? Do you know like when
it's 15 and 45.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
And 22 at the large camp down
so
there, right?
Here?
22. No, here. I do it on the other side here.
You go left?
Yeah, that lane where I'm where I'm currently next to, I pulled it that way at 22.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, this way. Okay, I see what you're saying. Just so you know, you can also pull it upward through this if you cut this one tree. I can't. I'll draw it.
I will totally practice that. Oh, that tree.
There's the one tree right here. I think you can see. Can you see my cursor? Discord's a bit weird.
Yes, I can see your cursor.
Okay,
yes.
so that tree right there. If you cut it, you can drag the creeps up through there. So you do go over to pull.
What number is that? That's 20.
That I believe it's 21.
21. Got it.
20 or 21. You'll actually have to find out. I've always done it by feel on that one, to be honest with you. But this pull is very good because the lane was pushing a bit and you were low on mana. So because you were low on mana, I don't think you should try to fight them back, kind of thing.
Yes.
So you're going to deny as many creeps as possible. This is a time where I might consider telling my carry, be a bit careful. I pulled. So let's see what happens here. So a weird thing to think about is that as a support, my game will always be better if my carry or whatever core I'm supporting's game is better. So what I mean by that is every carry is going to make use of an advantage differently. But if my rookie gets level 6 before their opponent gets level 6, that's going to actually benefit me a lot. Maybe that allows him to go rotate and kill people. Maybe that allows him to lane without me, meaning I don't need to help him anymore and I can go do something else. Maybe that makes it so he can farm jungle if it's like a Terrorblade, for instance. He can go farm jungle and then I get the lane. You know, like, I get some more XP from that. So what that means then is that everything you do should be avoiding taking experience when you are not helping him. Like, so what I mean by helping him is harassing the opponent, distracting the opponent, whatever. So, like, this is a perfect example where he's underneath his tower.
He's good.
He's good. He's chilling. Like, all of this XP right here should be his.
Should be his.
Should all be his. Move away. Yes. If, like, best support players in, like, a good lane, I'll be level 5 and they'll be, like, barely level 4, maybe 3.5. You know, like, they're getting some XP. It's not like they're just non-existent, but I am getting 60 to 65% of the lane's XP, and that's because of moments like this where you just cleared the pull, so you got some XP. You know, you got some XP from the pull. Now let him get as much solo XP as possible, because that's why your pull is good. Because by letting it go underneath tower, a lot of carries are gonna whine at your bracket because they're like, I have to CS under tower. It's hard. But the point is that you're allowing him to be solo, and the opponent is not solo. So something to consider Every time you pull this camp, so I told you this pull was good. The lane was pushing out. So I'm trying not to overload, but these are all things that apply every single game. The lane was pushing out, so you went and pulled. If the lane's underneath your tower, the worst thing as a carry player that can happen to me is the opponent pulling this camp over here while it's underneath my tower. Because if I'm a Ricky, I'm just going to be farming underneath my tower right here. And if Slardar was a good player, he would have pulled right here into this wave down here. Like, it's the wave.
Because he wants to get the creep back at his side.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Because this is all a war of you're trying to get the creep wave as close to your tower as possible, and they're trying to get the creep wave as close to their tower as possible. So this is an example where your bracket...
War of equilibriums.
Absolutely. So this is like this is the support's perspective of equilibrium. The carry's a whole nother ball game, but for you, if the lane's pushing out, pull the small camp. If the lane's pushing into your tower, prevent them from pulling the large camp. So a lot of supports would say, BSJ, if I'm not supposed to take this guy's XP, what the hell am I doing?
Supposed to do,
what am I doing? And I always tell you, like, every lane you go into, think about what could go wrong. So if the lane's pushing out, what can go wrong is that you can't fight them and you need to pull. So that's why you go do it. That's why you're fixing that. But if the lane's underneath your tower, what could go wrong is this guy pulling. So in that case, you should just walk your hero to, like, right around here just to see if they're pulling. Because if they're pulling, all you do is walk over and just draw the creeps away. Like, you can attack the creeps too. Yeah, aggro them back to you. Exactly. And if they're not pulling, what does that mean for you? I think this is the first time I can ask you a question. If the lane's underneath your tower, your Ricky's getting solo XP, and they're not pulling this, what does that mean for you?
In that case, we're at 47. I can stack?
I would say that the lane's just going well.
Yes, it's going well, yeah.
Like, it's funny. I always get different answers. Like, people sometimes tell me what they think they should do next. Sometimes people will be like, I don't know. And I'm like, for me, it's like, okay.
That's great.
So,
you're just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, cool. Saying. So first and foremost, if you're going to stack this camp, it's usually when your carry can clear it. Otherwise, it's generally bad. So if your carry is like a troll with whirling axes, or something like an AoE spell that can actually kill the camp, then consider stacking it. But Ricky doesn't clear stacks.
It's so funny. You already imprinting the fact that I should say what could go wrong is already kind of taking effect so nicely. Because I'm like, all right, if I pull, what can go wrong? If the enemy can get that stack really quickly, then I eventually just had a hand in making them stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've had plenty of rank 500 support players. I mean, we're talking like 6,500 MMR that triple stack this camp when I'm a hero that can't kill it. And what ends up happening is every time the lane's underneath my tower, the opponent supports pull the creeps into it, and they're just getting evaporated, right? Like, I can't farm these creeps of theirs when they're getting pulled into a triple stack. So that's like a perfect example where it's like, just think to yourself, if I stack this camp, what does Ricky benefit from that? Like, what does Ricky do with a stacked camp? It's like...
You can't. Not unless it's like maybe a bristleback or a...
Yeah, if you had a bristle or, like I said, a troll or, like... Every hero's different, though. Like, Slark, once he gets level 6, he can clear some stacks because, he has Dark Pact and his ultimate to give him regen back. Luna, when she gets glaives, can clear stacks. Like, there are heroes that can, but if the hero can't, then, then
why?
What
are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Why? So...
I got...
So this right here is a perfect example where great pull, and the reason why it's important to pull at 115. We're going to play this out for you. So you have the 15-second pull and the 45-second pull. I'm not telling you to never pull at 45. I'm not saying that. Yes. But we're going to tell you why it's better if you can do it every time. If you can, right? Sometimes you're busy. Sometimes you're busy laning for whatever reason. If you pull at 115, usually the small camp's not going to kill your entire creep wave.
Yes, that's correct.
This is what's going to happen here, right? You're going to have like 2 or 3 creeps left. So now let's just pay attention to what happens, right? Like, this is the best done by example.
I love it.
So let's act like you scouted out the pull. They're not doing it. You gave Ricky some solo XP. Now what's the lane doing?
What's the lane doing?
Like, in terms of lane equilibrium, what's happening here?
We're here. We're what is the lane doing?
Okay, so at the current moment, the lane's in a good spot. But next wave, where's it going to be based on all the creeps that you have and all the creeps they have?
it's gonna be a little bit more towards their end because we have more creeps. Yes.
Exactly. Right. So
Yeah.
this is something where I don't have to have the lane go out. Like I don't have to have the lane be here to know that this lane is going to be there soon because I have 6 creeps and they have 4. I literally look and go, oh, they have 6. I have 6 creeps and they have 4. This is what a single pull will look like 99% of the time, right? Like, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to pull, there's going to be 2 creeps left. You're going to have 6 creeps. They're going to have 4. So, the big deal here is, though, if Ricky's near his tower and he has more creeps, that usually means he's safe, right? Because if they try to trade with him, there's more creeps of yours than there are of theirs, so they'll take a lot of damage. He's close to his tower, so he can run quickly to his tower. And the lane's not going to be safe next wave, right? Because it's going to be out here, somewhere out here. I don't know exactly, but it's going to be somewhere, in this area. So what does that mean you should do right now?
I should pull again.
You should pull again at 2:15, right?
Yes.
So the reason why the 45-second pull is like not nearly as good as the 15-second pull is you pulled at 2:15, or sorry, at 1:15. Now what's happened a minute later? There's a new small camp for you to go pull. Great. Like, the lane's going to push, there's a new small camp for you to go pull. If you do that same pull at 1:45, the timer right now would be 2:34. Like, that's what the timer would be when the lane looks like this.
Yes.
You have to wait a whole nother 45 seconds before you can go pull to fix this problem. Do you see why that hurts you?
Yes.
So,
yes, you're right.
If you have to pull at 1:45, so be it. But a lot of times you can just go stack the camp at 1:53 and then pull at 2:15. That could be the alternative to pulling at 1:45.
Because that way, at least they'll clear the creeps faster. And then
exactly. Because what the difference between a single pull and a double pull is the double pull clears your creeps. The double pull will kill your own creeps. So right now, lane's push, like, it doesn't. So the first step was the lane's pushing, go fix it. The next step is the lane's going to push, go fix it. Like, I don't have to see it yet. And that's why single pulling at 15 is really good. So let's see.
So what you're saying is it gives you an extra pull if you need it.
Yes.
At the most optimal, at the quickest time possible.
Yeah.
If you pull at 1:14.
And my point is, you don't have to pull again at 2:15, right? You don't have to. But it gives you the option to. Like you said, it gives you that choice if need be. So this is a perfect example where it's like, I have no mana. And, well, we could have talked about starting items again, like, once again. But at this point, I'm like, I don't have mana. I'll just let Ricky do his thing, and I'll go pull again. I would have just pulled at 2:15 again, because we can rinse and repeat. What's going to happen if you do that twice? Your Ricky's going to be level 4. Both of them will be, like, level 3. And your Ricky all of a sudden is super strong. Like, that's what it looks like. And I will say, as a support, at your bracket, a large percentage of games, you could probably just pull at 1:15, then pull again at 2:15, and then maybe even pull again at 3:15, and it'll work almost every single time. Because the only way it's not going to work is if the opponent tries to stop you. And
that means they're probably better than
1K.
They're probably they're probably better than 1K. What are you?
Like, that's the important thing, right? Like, is if they don't stop you, great. That's icing on the cake there. But okay, so you contributing in the lane the way you are is perfectly fine. But if you don't have enough mana, it's like you want to find this balance between time pulling and time spent in lane. And even though you guys are technically winning the lane, notice how it's like, oh, I can't really do anything anymore. I'm going to try to pull this camp, which is fine. But look at this, right? Sometimes it's just not reliable. The only way you can pull that big camp is if Ricky is allowed. So let's rewind here. If Ricky is actually allowed to stand, like, right here, tanking these, right? Like, that's the only way that you can do this.
Yeah,
because otherwise it does this. Yeah, exactly. So the way I envision it is that you would have pulled at 2:15, the lane would have been, like, back here, and exactly what's happening right here would happen, but the lane would be where Centaur's running right here rather than underneath this tower. So you guys do get the kill. So what I'm saying is your overall execution of the lane is correct, but it could have just been better farther back.
At a better place.
Exactly.
Farther back at a better place. If I just pulled a 2:15. Okay.
Exactly. And the way I look at Dota is everything like lane equilibrium, where you want the lane to be and all that kind of stuff. The lane, it doesn't usually change what the lane looks like. It just makes it so all of the good things are better for you and all the bad things are less bad.
Less bad for you.
Yeah.
You're playing at at the best conditions.
You're playing
basically
in the best possible conditions. So anything that works with the conditions not being optimal would work way better if the conditions were. Anything that doesn't quite work when the conditions aren't optimal would work.
Would work. So coming from what you're teaching is the best pulls are the small camp 15 and the large camp 21, 22.
Yeah,
correct?
Usually this camp, the only time you can pull it the way you did just now is if you have like 8 creeps running into their tower and they're tanking the tower during the time you're pulling. Because you need that.
Through the tree. Through the tree would be the best.
Yeah, through this tree is much better, right? Because that's not something you have to... I think it's more like... It's probably like 19, if I had to guess. It's probably like 19. You can honestly just test in the lobby and do it like 3 times in a row.
I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on it. Yep.
You can always ask your carry to Quelling Blade that, by the way, so you don't have to spend a...
If he has one, yes.
Yeah. If they, so you don't have to spend a tango on it. But if they don't, whatever, you spend a tango on it. Okay, so... What was I going to say? All I'm trying to get at is if you're strong, let's give ourselves the IQ conditions to capitalize on it. If we're weak, let's make sure we don't feed. Like that's what we're going for. Okay, so you. I had one other point I wanted to make real quick. Okay, good habit.
Take your time.
Every time. Okay, on Jakiro, first and foremost, we'll talk basic levels. I want you to put 2 points of dual breath at level 2 or level 3, excuse me, every single game. If you read the ability, it goes up by 5 mana. Whatever. But it doubles in damage. The burn damage goes from 20 to 40. So you're spending literally the same amount of mana for double the damage. So it's this is an example of suboptimal skill leveling. And if you've played a hero 5 or 10 times, this is what I want to be perfect. So after that, we can worry about all this other random stuff. But on Jakiro, if you don't... Okay, I remember... I had a coaching session with a 3K player at one point who was playing Jug, and he got to level 6. And I don't know if you know, but Omni Slash costs a lot of mana.
And, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it costs a lot of mana. So his argument for not skilling his ultimate at 6 was, I didn't have any mana. And I said, that's not okay. Give yourself freaking mana. Like that. Like don't accept playing your hero at like a less efficient level because you just don't have the resources, right? Whether those resources are health or mana or whatever. So this is an example where one may argue, I don't have mana to cast Dual Breath, so I'm going to level a point in Liquid Fire. It's like, my argument is, this is twice as good at level 2. Give yourself mana. Like, that's what your hero relies on to be played optimally. So, so far, pretty good lane. Like, obviously, you guys have gotten 2 kills, but still things to improve upon, and that's what we're going for.
Still things to improve upon. Yes, no, this is wonderful. I love it.
Okay, so you actually pulled their creeps. Oh, okay. It's funny. Okay, so your lane's basically normal now. I look at this lane and say, everything's pretty normal. My problem I have is that I'm sitting at a 3rd health and 3rd mana, but it looks like I'm still contributing. So
yeah, I didn't want them to kill Ricky. I was like, save Ricky.
And all I'll say is if you're pulling over and over again, and every time you finish the pull, I would just get in the habit of checking my health and mana. So it's like, if I come out of this pull and I have 200 mana, I should just fly myself 2 clarities. If I'm missing health and mana like right now, fly myself a salve and 2 clarities. Every time you're in this downtime, get in the habit of checking your health and mana.
I have an important question, Coach, because I think we're coming to a point where I can ask it.
Okay.
Sometimes, and this is about prioritizing what to buy at the early laning stage.
Okay.
Sometimes I want to save money because I said, okay, I need movement speed. I want to get boots. So I'm not going to buy that clarity. I'm not going to buy that extra tango because I want to save money to eventually get movement speed. But obviously there are principles. If I had proper principles, then that's not something I would entertain. So what's the best mindset to have in regards to, of obviously having the best advantage in regards to buying those things? Should I save money for boots every now and then, or should I always get clarities? What are the conditions that I should always look at for me to make those decisions properly?
I'm going to be a bit brutal on this answer, but as a
Please.
support player, when I'm a carry, I need you to not be a useless piece of shit. So my answer would be whatever items, how small or large it is, that you need to buy to not be sitting in my lane, not being able to cast spells with no health. That's what it takes. Like, that is the level of items you need to buy. So my important thing that I would say is, if you don't have enough health or mana, maybe it was your starting items. Maybe all of your starting items were dedicated to this and you still didn't have enough. So maybe you needed to be pulling more often because that doesn't require you to spend health and mana. Like, you could do something that doesn't require as much resources from you. If you just got a kill, maybe because you just got gold from getting that kill, you should spend that money on the gold of regen that it took you to get the kill. Like if I had to spend 400 health and 200 mana to get that kill, I should use the gold to replenish myself, The boots, windlace, all that kind of stuff, they're all bonuses after you are not useless. Like, that is how I look at it. So, like, right now, if I'm a carry player and I'm looking at my support Jakiro, I'm like, what do I do with this guy? Like, can we contest bounties? No. Like my Jakiro's not going to be a part of it. And so, as a support, and oftentimes you run into a problem where you're not going to have the money to get health and mana. And that's the times where you see supports in Pro Dota suiciding themselves to tier 2s or walking back to base. I know as a support, since you don't have as much money, that there are going to be innately times that you are not able to help. Like, that is going to happen. We want you to minimize that as much as possible. So, lingering with no health and mana is like the worst thing you can do. So I like to say, if I'm super low health or super low mana, I need to either fix that or go to base. Like, I need to fix it very soon or go to base. Like, that's...
And you don't want to go to base because you're going to leave your carry alone.
Yes, exactly. So the going to base option is like a last resort, right? Like, that's saying I don't actually have the money to buy...
It's a walk shame.
Yeah, I have to walk, right?
You didn't make good life choices.
Yes.
Now you're like, it's like look at this guy walking back. Look at him walking back.
When I talk to carry players past like the 8-minute mark, I say I want your time to be spent as efficiently hitting as many creeps as possible. So if there's something you're doing to prevent you from hitting creeps, you need to stop. It's like, as a support, I need you to be as useful as possible at all times. So if there's something that is fixable that is not making you useful, you need to fix it.
I got it.
You see what I
So
mean?
basically, if I bought boots or windlace, all it's gonna do is gonna make me walk faster back to base.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sometimes worth considering, by the way. Like, sometimes, like, that's your best use of items. What I want to be clear about, by the way...
But it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that.
Yeah. But what I want to be clear about, though, is if you buy windlace or boots, how useful are those to you at, like, 20 minutes into the game?
Really useful.
How useful is a headdress to you 20 minutes into the game?
Nothing.
Okay, so that's actually worth considering on support heroes, where the only reason I'm going to buy these items that don't actually help me later is if my carry absolutely needs it, right? So I don't want my Coddle to have a buckler if I don't need him to have a buckler, because at 20 minutes in, if he has a buckler, it's like, my Coddle has a buckler. Like, what? Like, that doesn't do shit. At 20 minutes in the game. What?
This is so useful.
Yeah. So but the one thing I love is if I'm investing some of my starting gold into that windlace, not only is it helping me in the lane, but it's also an item I'm happy to have in my inventory 20 minutes later. So that's also, like, super helpful.
And it can also come into Tranquil, which is usually a support item.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So,
that's what I mean. It builds into something you're going to use, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to go pipe on Jakiro. Okay. This is hilarious. Okay. Another blasphemous mistake I see in, like, every single game I have below 4K in the last, like, 4 coaching sessions. It's actually insane. It's hilarious.
Okay.
What's more useful to you? I'm just asking you. Like, this isn't meant to be sarcastic. Would you rather have 45 movement speed or 3 all stats?
Would I rather have 45 movement
Actually, no,
speed?
I'll ask you a better question. Sorry, more accurately. Would you rather have 20 movement speed or 3 all stats?
3 all stats? Oh, 3 all stats.
Yeah, sorry. Like 3 strength, 3 int, and 3 agility. Would you rather, as a support, would you say that 3 all stats or 20 movement speed will often help you more?
I would say I would say movement speed would help me better. That's my initial.
So what
my
do
initial
all stats help with? I'm just gonna think to myself out loud here. All stats help me trade. They help me survive like burst damage. They give me last hitting damage. So like if I get 3 stats, that's 3 more damage. And so my question to you is, does any of that help support heroes most of the time?
Trading? Well, because if you're trading, you're not really going as a support 5, you're not really going trading a lot because you're mostly just pulling and making sure your carry
and casting
is
some
useful,
spells, right? Like that's really what you're
casting spells, but I'm not really trading as much. So those extra stats won't really come into use unless I'm team fighting in the mid game.
Okay.
Or like after the 10-minute mark. So I would say pulling would be more movement speed would be more.
Yeah. So the trick on supports is you're walking around a lot.
Yeah.
Aren't you? You're walking to runes, you're walking to camps, you're walking back to lane, you're walking to ward. There's a lot of walking.
Yes. Exactly.
So the reason why I'm comparing this is, just so you get a very clear idea, Stick and Wand do very similar things, okay? The only difference in terms of the actual active is that Stick gets 10 charges max, and Wand gets 20. Other than that, you are spending 250 gold for 3 all stats to go from Stick to Wand. Okay.
And now that I see why it's hilarious. I've been doing that since the beginning of time, buddy.
Yeah.
Everyone says buy Stick, buy one. That's it. It imprinted in my head.
Okay, so what Stick does, right? If they cast a lot of spells, you buy a Stick. So it's like, but my emphasis would be, you never buy a wand until like you have Boots, Windlace at the bare minimum. Like, you have to have Boots, Windlace, and then maybe go wand.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's 3 all stats for 250 gold. 250 gold is a fourth of your net worth, sir. It's a fourth of your net worth.
So I used the 4th. It wasn't. Oh my god! It was such a bad buy.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you right now. I have now had to preach this to like 3K and 4K players, so we're getting you in way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, all right, that's good. Question, sir.
Go ahead.
Jakiro is a mana dependent sort of hero. If I get Windlace, should I build the Tranquil or should I just go get the mana boots first so that I can go Aether Lens maybe eventually, and then get the Tranquil to disassemble? What's the usual way in regards to boots for Jakiro? Is it a situational thing, or should I always go mana Tranquil first, or sometimes it just makes sense to go Tranquil first?
Your 2 options are Tranquils with a shit ton of clarities, or mana boots. And usually it's literally the same question I told you to ask yourself going into the lane, but it's going into the 10-minute mark rather than the lane, where it's like, if you have mana boots, but you just keep getting hit with damage, like say they have like a Tinker or a Zeus that keeps randomly bolting you or ulting or whatever, you need that Tranquils. Otherwise, you're going to be full mana with no health, right? In this case, they have a Spectre. I would argue Tranquil boots are probably pretty necessary, because if I'm not sitting at full health against heroes like Spectre, I'm just going to die.
Because he can use his ult and just basically
kill you, right? So
that makes sense.
That's simply I'm telling you the uses of Tranquils and the uses of mana boots. Mana boots are kind of like the greedier item that allows you to skimp on clarities, so it'll effectively save you money in the long run there. But some games, if I buy mana boots and I'm just feeding, that doesn't, like, yay, I saved money. You know, it's like,
exactly. Hey, I died, but I got you mana.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but don't say I did nothing for you, man. I got you mana.
So I think you could probably default to Tranquils or default to mana boots, and then just try to notice the games where you don't have enough mana and you have all the health in the world, or notice games where if you start with Tranquils every game that you start with mana boots every game, that you're just taking a random crap ton of damage and you're just like, I wish I had Tranquils. And just try to pay attention to why it's happening. Is it a specific hero on the opponent team? Is it like how you're having to play the game? Like, what is it that's happening?
I love this. What do I think is going to go wrong? What went wrong? Because it encourages such critical, it just gets you to start thinking and asking questions.
Yes.
Every time after a thing. And it forces you to, it's just the right question. Like, what do I think is going wrong? It forces you to guess.
Yeah.
And then if you guess properly, great. If you don't, then you go, what went wrong? Those 2 questions are just, that's such
I emphasize it in every role, and I know for the viewers out there, they're probably wondering, BSJ, Eri, this session's been going for like an hour, and you're 7 minutes into the game. And I want to be clear that I think these decisions are really similar throughout the entire course of the game. Like, what went wrong, why, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, in the laning stage, when it comes to, like, dying and stuff, it's like, do I buy a windlace? Do I buy a stick? Do I buy an extra salve to make sure I don't die? In the later game, it's like, do I buy a Force Staff? Do I buy a Glimmer? Do I buy a Yules? Do I buy a Ghost Scepter? Like, what am I buying to not die? But in the laning stage, it's 2v2. In the late game, it's 5v5, where everyone has all of their skills maxed out, so you have to worry about everyone's skills, all their ultimates, and you have to worry about all the items they've bought. So it's like, at this stage in the game, you have to look at the 2 heroes on the enemy team that are level 1. What is their level 1 ability? What does it do to me? What do I have to itemize to not die to it or whatever? And if you can't do that itemization correctly, how are you ever going to itemize correctly with 200 different factors that go on, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in the game? So
you're teaching the proper principle. Because, and honestly, Coach, this already, just this hour and a half has already, you're reshaping how I'm going to be tackling my first set of decisions for the early game, for the laning stage.
You're going to run into all kinds of shit, as I'm going to tell you. You're going to be like, wow, this happened, and I just never thought about it before, because it never could happen. And, like, all I'm reemphasizing here is a lot of the things you're doing is, like, you're pulling, you're rotating back to lane. All of this is great. Wouldn't you just rather be 60 or 70 movement speed faster from boots and a windlace doing it?
Stick.
Right? Like, wouldn't you just rather be doing it that way?
And I'm not even trading, so what am I using stick for? You're like, what are you doing?
I never will bash a stick. I never bash stick. Because it's 200 gold and it's almost always does something. I bash wand, though, because it's 3 all stats for 250 gold at the end of the day. Right? Like,
so it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Are you saying it doesn't make sense? Yeah. Oh, I pulled here. Oh,
that's actually a decent pull. But, okay, so let's just watch this out. I've talked a lot at this point. We haven't really... I don't think you're at a bracket where I'm going to worry too much about rotations prior to maybe, like, 8 or 9 minutes. Like, I would say the, like, super high level, we're going to worry about, like, what lane you go to next and all that kind of stuff. But now we're going to worry about this, like, 9-minute period-ish. It's going to be around here. I said 9 minutes because in this game it's 9 minutes. Where, at this point, the laning stage is kind of over, right? Where... you have this little vacuum for the first 5 to 6 minutes where it's you and the 2v2, and that's pretty much it.
Yes.
Now, at this stage, other heroes are going to start interacting with your lane, right? That's what we're seeing. You now have 4 heroes in your lane. So the question is, when you have 4 heroes in your lane, what's the plan? Go ahead.
What would be the most optimal thing we need to do if there are 4 heroes in our lane?
What I am saying is, if you ever have 4 heroes in a lane, you better be doing something or just disperse. Because you're spending 4 heroes to hit a lane, theoretically, right? Like, so every time I'm grouped with my team, I think to myself, what exactly are we accomplishing? Like, right now. So
I love that.
If you're Jakiro and you're like, hey man, I think we're strong enough to push this tower, it's like, great, stick around and you have this ward, maybe look to kill the guys underneath their own tower and push it. But it's like, if I'm like a non-pushing support and I look at my 3 heroes on my team, I'm like, none of these guys kill buildings, so I guess I'm just gonna leave, And at that point, we can decide every game what's the correct rotation. But I know for a fact you've never asked yourself this question when there's 4 of you here. It's like, what exactly are we going to do? Next week when I watch your replay or whatever, if I come to this moment in the game, I'm going to ask you specifically, what did you think you guys were going to accomplish here as 4 heroes?
I think kill someone was the only thing.
Okay. And so what I want you guys to think about is... This is funny. It can happen at every level. Kills need to do something. Okay? Like, the point of kills is that they do something. So what I mean by that is, if your goal is to kill a tower, and the only way you can kill the tower is if you kill the guy in front of it, that kill has the purpose, because you're killing the guy to go kill the tower. Say your carry is getting harassed a lot by the offlaner. So your goal is to kill the offlaner so that your carry stops getting harassed so that he can start farming. Mm-hmm. It's like if my carry's already farming and us killing this guy is also not going to help us take the tower, then there's no point to killing this guy.
Kills need to do something.
Yeah, they need to change the game somehow. They need to make it so whoever wasn't farming is now able to farm. Whatever tower couldn't be taken could be taken. You're going for a bounty rune, so you want the kills there. My point is, after I get a kill, the game needs to look different than it did prior. Otherwise, why am I getting this kill?
Coach B, I'm going to write this down. This is important shit. Okay? It should help your carry not get harassed. Help you get a tower. Help you get a tower. Or help you get it. This is early game situations, right?
This can be anything. Like super late game, it's way more complicated. But my point is, I'm going to work on this decision making with you around the 9 to 10 minute mark, because this is around the first time in the game where people start grouping up and potentially taking fights.
I love that it should help your carry not get harassed. So basically, if we're getting like just freaking pummeled on like the first 4 to 5 minutes, a good decision for me is like, hey sniper, can you please rotate here just to get a kill off this dude, because they're killing us. That's a good thing to say, dude.
Absolutely, yeah. So the way I look at it is, if I'm a carry, I'll ask you simply, if I'm a carry 9 minutes into the game, what's my objective? What am I trying to do?
Me to get strong.
How do I do that?
Either CS or kill people.
Okay, so CS. Like that's 90% of where my gold's coming from, right? Yes. Is the CS. So wouldn't you say it's fair to say that an objective is for my carry to be able to hit creeps? Like that's
Hell yeah.
That's an objective.
Hell yeah.
So if I'm killing somebody so that my carry can hit creeps, great. Like that's
doing good.
That's an objective. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. So like if go ahead.
Go on. And if that person that rotated managed to help get a kill and experience, then we've managed to make that objective possible and also get experience for the rest of the team.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to say is some of the worst rotations, like it's hard to tell you about this now, like specific examples, but say I am a carry that's incredibly passive, like just one that wants to hit creeps and farm. Say an alchemist. Okay, that's like the hyper example. If I'm allowed to farm my lane, meaning I'm just hitting creeps, I don't want you near me. I don't want you there, because if you bring... XP. Yeah, also, okay, let me think. I want you to think about this real quick. Okay. You're not only stealing my XP, but if I'm Alchemist, and I have 3 heroes in my lane on my own team, what is the opponent probably going to do?
They're going to go to the opposite lane and either push or try to kill the mid guy.
Or they're going to come to your lane and fight you. In which case, you're now forcing your Alchemist carry to participate in fights. Right? So what you're doing is you're helping a guy that doesn't want your help. So you're leaving the other lanes potentially vulnerable, or you're forcing a guy to fight that doesn't want to fight. So it's like, Ricky, on the other hand, he wants to fight, because if he's not allowed to hit... He doesn't have a backup plan. Ricky can't hit jungle creeps, right? Like, Ricky doesn't hit jungle. He wants to kill people. So, like, if I'm looking at this stage in the game, I'm like, what hero on my team, wants me to help them kill people? And it's like, Ricky, great. Bristleback, like, can he? Sure. But, like, I think Ricky's much more of a kill hero than Bristleback or Sniper, right? So it's like, I'm going to play around this Ricky a lot. So, like, that's how, for me, at the 10-minute mark, a simple question you can ask yourself is, if I'm going to get kills, which one of my cores wants me to help them? Like, which one of them wants to be fighting, wants to be killing people? And so the easiest way to decide what to do in Dota, and one of the hardest things to realize, is when you can't do anything. Like, a lot of people in every bracket struggle with these moments where they can't do anything. So, like, when I get to this, like, 10 minutes... What?
I hate that feeling.
Oh, it's terrible.
When I don't know what I need to do. Yeah, it's
terrible.
Horrible. Yeah.
So the way I like to look at it is, I like to think of the options that I have. So it's either... Okay, this is a very simple question that'll blow your mind. It always does to people.
Okay.
There's always one team that wants to do something. That's usually, there's always a status quo in the game, okay? Like, if both teams are farming, almost always one team benefits more than the other, right? Like, one team has better late game, and they're going to be happy if literally nothing's happening in the game. Yes. So, if your team is happy with that, what is the other team? They are not happy with that, right? So, if you are ahead like that, what should be your main concern if you're content farming? Like, instead of thinking about your own plays, what should you be thinking about?
Okay, can you ask the question again so I can absorb it?
Yeah, that's fine. I know it's a hard question. It's a weird question. Yeah, so if your team is happy farming, say you have better late game you think you have better late game than the opponent. If you're happy farming and there's really, like, to you, nothing obvious to do, what is the other team's thought?
They want to disrupt our farming.
They want to do that, right? So what should you think about in terms of your own decision-making in the game?
As a support?
Yeah.
Provide vision.
Like, my question would be, if the opponent tries to kill somebody on my team, who would it be? Who are they going to try to kill? Are they going to try to kill my carry? Are they going to try to kill my mid laner? Like, if I look at my heroes, who's the most likely to die? And so it's like,
Sniper.
So if it's Sniper, I'd be like, I'll probably play behind my Sniper and put wards in wherever the Sniper is. Because I want to see what the opponent's doing. But in this case, right, you're the team that wants to do something. Would you agree? You're against a Spectre.
These are questions that these are things I'm kind of still getting familiarized with because I don't know which heroes have better late game, early game, and when.
So that's something we're going to be able to talk about every session, and I can talk about in specific examples. But
I love it.
On your own, it's just going to come down to thinking whether or not you have to do something. Like, you just have to ask.
Yeah.
So you can say, okay, I think I'm in a game where I'm supposed to do something. Okay?
Yes.
So if you're in the game where you're supposed to do something, where should your wards be?
In this situation, you're saying?
You can use this one as an example, for instance.
Where should my wards be? Right now, we want a better... They have the better late game with Spectre, correct?
Yeah.
And where is Spectre playing? He's
playing bottom right now.
He's playing bottom. So maybe we would want to kill the Spectre a lot eventually. So that maybe place wards in the bottom so that we can hopefully kill Spectre and get a tower.
Okay. So this is the beauty of how hard it is to play support in your bracket. So who on your team kills people?
Ricky.
Okay. So if Ricky never goes bottom, are you ever killing that Spectre?
No.
Probably not, right? So as opposed to thinking about the guy you want to kill, what should be your actual perspective?
Well, just killing the people that we can kill in front of us.
Okay. And who's the part of that?
Right now it's Slardar or this Centaur
Sorry, who
guy.
on your team is a part of that?
Ricky.
So where should my wards be?
My wards should be around Ricky.
Yeah,
correct?
Because I want to do stuff. Who on my team does stuff? Give myself information in that area to do stuff. Because if you're thinking about the heroes you're supposed to kill, you're then going to rely on your teammate to make, like, the right rotations and he's supposed to play the right part of the map and all that kind of stuff. I've realized at my bracket this still happens. So it's going to happen way even more at your bracket. But
what a hard life I chose.
Yes, trust me. You just have to pick, you have to be like, what hero on my team actually does stuff? And I'm just going to play wherever he is. Because I'm a support, and I'm useless in comparison. Like, I told you saw the Axe game I played last night. I realized I knew exactly where we were supposed to play on the map. I'm not, like, bragging. I knew exactly where I wanted to play, what was supposed to be happening.
Yes.
And I looked at my Jug, and I was like, this guy is playing way too scared, but I know I need to play around him. I took, like, 3 fights away from the Jug, and we lost them. And I was like,
okay.
Well, what I realized quickly, and what I keep realizing in terms of discipline, is it doesn't matter necessarily where the right place is. Like, that's something you can work on as a team or whatever. To me, what matters is if I'm a support or an offlaner, who helps me make plays? Like, who am I needing to assist me? Because I usually can't do things alone if I'm an offlaner or a support.
So you're saying, Coach B, who is more important than where in this case?
Yes, absolutely. So, like, in my case, if I don't have Jug's, like, Omni/damage to help follow me up, I can't kill anyone. So if I'm playing away from my Jug, it just doesn't matter, like, what I'm trying to do. It's going to be wrong. So, in this case, it's like, if your team's on the defensive and you're sitting behind the guy that doesn't die, you know, what are you actually going to do there, right? You're probably going to watch your sniper on the other side of the map dying. Like, that's probably what you're going to see happen, right?
Yes.
So it's like, on the other hand, if in a lot of games like this, where your team wants to get stuff done, and you're not playing near Ricky, you'll probably be around Bristleback, kind of just chilling, watching your Ricky trying to kill people without
by himself.
Yeah, that's what you're going to see. Because all the heroes in Dota, no matter what bracket you're at, they all do the same things. Like, Ricky is still a kill hero at your bracket, you know? Anti-Mage is still a farming hero at your bracket. So if you can learn, just make a guess. And it's like, if you come back to me and you're Jakiro and you're like, I thought I was supposed to play around Bristle or whatever. And I'd be like, no, like, this is your hero that kills people, play around him kind of thing. And we can talk about matchups and that kind of stuff, right? But I can't give you, there's way too many matchups to worry about that.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so if you're the team that feels strong, who do I play around? If you think the other team's stronger and you're trying to farm, okay, to be clear, if you're trying to farm, that's usually because the opponent is stronger than you, and the only way to fix that is to get more items or levels.
Yes.
So that's why you're farming. On the other hand, if you're stronger than them, they're trying to farm because
you interrupt them.
Yeah, you're trying to interrupt them from coming back or whatever, or getting to the late game.
I'm not at that level yet, Coach.
Oh, absolutely. I understand. We're talking at a very basic level that you are, if you're ahead, you're trying to stop them from coming back. If you're behind, you're trying to make it so you can be not behind. Like, that's
I just have to keep playing to understand which heroes kind of influence that sort of outcome. Correct?
And all I'm saying is, every game, guess whether or not you're, like, supposed to do something. And if you come into this replay with me, with you saying, hey, you know, Coach B, I thought I was supposed to be aggressive here, and I thought Ricky was the hero to help me to do it. That might be wrong, and I could tell you why. But I don't want you to be like, I was trying to be aggressive here, and you were playing around your sniper.
Yes.
You know, like, that's, like, or whatever. Like, I want whatever you think to line up with what I'm seeing, even if it doesn't work. Like, I guess that's my better example. I want... even if you're wrong,
me to make sound decisions. Like, even if it's wrong, it's at least, like, the probabilities of those type of decisions working for you will end up being more than it isn't, correct?
Yes, absolutely. If you're doing, like, the wrong thing for the right reason, that's much more workable than anything else. Like, if you're just kind of doing whatever. Like, if you're just kind of doing, I can't really, like, analyze and teach you with it.
At least we have some framework, a structure to work with here.
Yes, exactly. And if you're thinking for yourself, I can also much better understand your thinking to thus fix it in whatever way I have
I'm sure you come across, so do you adjust based on how your student is thinking? You're like,
oh,
okay,
absolutely.
He's thinking this.
Yeah, there's players that are way too aggressive. They look for way too many kills. There's players that look to play way too passive. There's players that... you know, they'll focus on killing way too many creeps when there's, like, a fight going on, or, you know...
So you don't try to change that, you just build around it?
No. So, okay, so first off, there are different playstyles, right? Like, people have different playstyles, but, like, in my firm opinion, if you're a hero in a specific matchup, you're either supposed to be aggressive or you're not.
That is true.
Like, if you're an aggressive player and I see you playing aggressive heroes, cool. I'm not going to try to take that aggression away from you. I'm going to try to teach you how to be a better aggressive player. If you're more of a farm-oriented player, I'm going to try to get you to be a better farm-oriented player. In my firm opinion, most situations only have one or two really correct things to do. Like, at the end of the day. Most of them do. So an example I'll give you is when you take this tower. I'm just going to talk about this. In your bracket, the biggest misunderstanding all the way down the levels is the importance of pushing creep waves.
Yes.
So, the reason why I like you to be supports with nukes, like Shaman, Jakiro, CM, Pugna, is that if your teammates are not prioritizing pushing creep waves, At least you can, right? That's why if you're Bane and nobody's pushing creep waves, you're kind of like...
Oh, you're done.
Yeah, you just can't do anything about it. And because that's such a common problem in your bracket, that's why I like to think about it. In your bracket, I think it's safe to say that anytime you guys look to make a rotation, nuke whatever wave you're at and then leave. So whether or not that's basically as a support, the way I think about it is if nobody else is doing it, I'm doing it.
If I'm going to rotate, I'm going to write this down.
Yeah.
Nuke whatever. I can even wait for that wave to kind of come towards me. Or go.
Absolutely, yeah. You can wait.
If I'm going to nuke whatever wave in lane you're at, and then rotate.
Yeah, so this perfect example is right here. You just took a tower. Your team, you guys are like moving towards mid right now. That's what you guys are doing. Somebody out of all of you should clear this creep wave that's coming right here. And even if... What?
Okay. Because you just want to keep your creeps pushing, correct?
Yeah, it's going to give you a lot of information. Because what happens is, if none of you guys clear this, this is 200 XP and 180 gold down the drain. Do you see that? Like, that is just money and XP down the drain. Because it is pushing, right? Like, so it's not necessarily at this point in the game as much about pushing the creeps. It's more so that by pushing creeps, that means you're getting gold and XP because they're dying. And you're farming. As you go later into the game...
Is that more important at this point?
At this point in the game, yes. That is the most important aspect, is the farm you are accruing from pushing waves. Later in the game, it's much more about the information you're getting from pushing the creep waves. But
and it doesn't matter who gets that farm, as long as one of the heroes in our team gets that.
Well, if I'm a core and I'm clearing it, the last thing I want my support to do is walk up and nuke it.
Yeah, but if no one is there, at least it's me.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, as a support, though, that's why I told you, if nobody else is doing this, it's your job. Because I want somebody to get that creep. I want somebody to get it. Your level, if you can be a level 8-5 position rather than a level 6 because you cleared an extra 4 or 5 waves, you'll have more impact on the game. Maybe you'll have a 4-staff. You know, maybe you'll get a bracer, whatever, like some item that helps you be a bit stronger. So I see this moment as... We push this tower. Looks like we're going somewhere else. I think of Dota as a lot of, like, switches and triggers. Like I told you earlier, when the lane's pushing, think to pull or fight them. One of those two things. Right now, you took a tower. You guys are going to go somewhere else. Somebody's clearing that next wave. If it ain't my teammates, it's me. Like that's like a nice little trigger, because like if I think I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Every time I take a tower, I'll be like, all right, boys. Like let's say I'm talking to just a random queue or just the people I usually party. Guys, let's clear this next wave before we move.
Yes,
that's what I say all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Guys, let's get this wave first before we move. All right, I know we see Disruptor there, but let's get this next wave.
Okay, I'm actually gonna tell you something different here. I hate to be mean. People in your bracket, I've learned if I tell somebody what to do, if they don't understand why they're supposed to do it, it's detrimental communication.
Okay.
So like in your bracket, people don't understand why you're supposed to clear creep waves.
No, they won't.
So if you want to smoke like this, the way you did, let's just rewind.
Yeah.
You can do the exact same thing where you communicate this smoke to your team, say absolutely nothing, and during this time, walk over and push dual breath on this creep wave down here. Like, on your way through smoking. Like, just go clear the creep wave. So what I'm telling you is, I want you to know how important it is to clear a creep wave before you go somewhere. So rather than telling your team, this is important, before we smoke, clear that wave, if nobody else is doing it, and you guys smoke, you just need to go do it.
Myself.
Yeah, just do it. I want you to know it's important every time you rotate to clear a wave, and if nobody else is doing it, don't tell them to do it, because they won't understand why. Like, they're not going to understand. At my bracket, that's not something that needs to be said. Like, it'll just happen. So at your bracket, if you try to tell people that, it's going to, like, overwhelm them, it's going to confuse them, they're going to, like, worry about the creep wave when they should be worrying about the smoke gank. You know what I'm saying?
F you. They'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, or they'll think you're micromanaging them, you know. There's a lot of negatives that come with it, and I've realized that you can't teach someone the game of Dota concepts during the game itself.
No, that is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
I've gotten tilted myself trying to do that. So
really, I can imagine me tilting, just trying to explain it too, and
you will be so upset. You'll be like, God, I know all this info, and these 1K players, they're so trash.
Coaches me, bro.
Yeah.
Coach B told me to do this, bro. Trust me, this is legit. I can send you clips, but we don't have time.
So I think this is a very natural smoke rotation it doesn't always have to be a smoke, but a very natural rotation. You take this bottom tower and you walk through their jungle, maybe place a ward or two, and then you look to fight mid. I think that's going to be something you do quite commonly, and I'm not going to necessarily worry too much about fights right now. You're taking a good fight, like you showed up in their mid lane, you smoked there. All I'm going to care about right now is making sure while you're doing those rotations that everything prior to the rotation was correct. The pushing lanes part, what ends up happening is if all the lanes are pushed, if you win a fight, you get a tower. If they win the fight, they killed you. Like that.
If they win a fight, they get a tower. If they win a fight, they killed you. Okay.
What I'm saying is both teams get kills if they win the fight. If all the lanes are pushed, you'll also get towers. So
because you're dedicating time out of lane and no one's contesting, correct?
Yes, exactly. And once you win the fight, you literally just go to the tower that's pushed already and you just kill it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, so it's like
my Guardian Herald, if we're watching, let's push lanes, man.
What happens is the number of fights you have to win to end the game is like half. Like you have to win 3 fights instead of 6, you know? And that's why I tell you kills should matter, because people will come to me in coaching sessions at 4K bracket where they're like, BSJ, I had 20 kills, and I just can't win games. My teammates are a bunch of noobs. And I'll watch through their game, and I'll be like, what did this kill do? And he's like, I killed the guy. And I'm like, but what changed?
Coach B, I have a question, because I think, how many creep waves do you need to push for a tower to eventually die?
My answer to that question... The best answer is that is 100% dependent upon your heroes and theirs.
But I mean, let's say if you push 3 creep waves properly, how much damage does that equate to at the next tower?
What I'm saying, are you saying if your hero's hitting the tower, or if just the creeps are hitting the tower?
If just the creeps are if you manage to push it and then the heroes don't contest it, how many? Thank you, baby. That's my son. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
If you manage to clear a creep wave and they push all the way to a tower, how much damage does that equate to the tower, more or less? I'm sorry if that's a specific question.
No. So what I want to tell you is that's a very good question to ask yourself, and the only answer I can give you is if the opponent offlaner is a Beastmaster, your tower is going to die. If the opponent offlaner is a Pango, it probably takes 6 waves. Like, with Beastmaster, it takes 1 or 2. With Pango, it takes 6. But the point is that every hero in the game does a different amount of tower damage, right? So it's like, your question is a great one to ask yourself in lane. Like, if I let the opponent push the lane into my tower, how quickly will my tower die? With most heroes, it's like, it's a lot of waves. It's like somewhere around 6 to 10 waves in your tower, and they'll kill it. But, like, if you're a pushing hero... You know, like Shadow Shaman or Jakiro or Nature's Prophet or Beastmaster, it could just be 1 or 2 creep waves. So in those situations, it's very important that, if possible, you don't let them get the creep wave to your tower, because they could just kill your tower. So my answer to you is that's a great question to ask yourself. That's something I probably would have told you to ask yourself eventually. And another thing that you just have to make a guess on, like, if we push this many creep waves, we'll kill the tower.
How many towers? And that's eventually something I'll learn.
You will just learn. Yeah,
that's true. I'm like, oh, dude, coach B, 2 creep waves. We got the bottom tower, and we. Oh yeah, okay, that's good. I get it.
Okay, a nice rule of thumb for Dota.
Yes.
If the game feels fine. So what I mean by that is you're not level 5, 20 minutes in the game, and you're not 0-10. So what I mean by that is the game is kind of just happening. Would you agree in this game, even if you don't know exactly what's happening, that this isn't like a bad game, right?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
You think you're doing okay. If that is the situation, bottom lane is pushed before you go mid. This bottom lane needs to be at their tier 2 before you go mid. So what I'm saying is there are ideals in Dota, and the only time the ideals do not fit is when you're here, like you're behind.
or you're in a bad matchup. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's why it's like I teach these concepts that are ideals, and then like BSJ, it's like, what if I can't do that? Well, I'm like, well, then obviously don't. But like, what I'm trying to avoid happening is something that you want to happen, that you're perfectly capable of making happen, and nobody's doing it, right? So my example here is just that later I'll have to explain it to you. Like it will come into play when you do it and you try it out. But as a support player, a great thing to do in your bracket, in any bracket, as any role, is if this lane is not pushed to their tier 2, you do not try to take that mid tower. You just don't try. It gives you so much information. Like, if they're not contesting bottom, like meaning they're not defending that tower, you're just going to kill their tier 2. So the way I look at this tier 2 bottom, this is super advanced, but I can give it at a basic level. This is a tower of convenience. What it means is, I like to farm this lane. If this tower dies because I'm farming the lane, in the meantime, great, it died. Like, the tower, it's going to die not because we make some 5-man rotation to it. It's because the tower is going to die to us constantly pushing the lane in. That's what's going to happen. Yep. On the other hand, mid tower is not a tower of convenience. It's going to die by making some massive rotation from our team onto this tower. So, on towers that are not towers of convenience, which means the mid towers, mainly,
yes,
you need to have the proper setup to make it work. Like, and I can't explain to you all the reasons why it's proper, but if you push in bottom lane, one of them is likely to defend the bottom lane tower, which then allows you to walk mid and have a 5-on-4. Like,
because not everyone's not going to be bottom.
Yeah, because they can't be in 2 different places at once. They can't be bottom and mid. So if you force them to go bottom first, it makes mid tower way easier. So like when I told you guys like
if you're farming in the other side, they'd have to walk or TP, but if you're going mid, I mean it's an easier travel time. They can just cross.
They can just show up from anywhere right now, right? Like look at this mid tower. Right. They could be anywhere and just walk here. But if you're pushing this lane in and one of them TPs to defend it, and then you walk mid, it's like, okay, you have 5 heroes maybe and they have 4. Like that's best case scenario for them. So all I'm saying is, if you go into your next games thinking, every time I want this mid tower, or every time I want to go, like, in the middle area of the map, the opponent's safe lane needs to be pushed. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if you're dire...
you have to push top, right?
Yes. For the people in chat, I'm literally teaching Eri the dead lane right now, so... the 1K version of the dead lane. So, and
the
all
dead
this
lane.
Yes, and we'll worry about exactly why later. But the point is, it's also going to give you a ton of farm. Like if your team's not doing it, it's going to set up your objectives way better. But it's also as a support, you're just going to get like 3 or 4 creep waves of farm. And a lot of times in your bracket, when nothing's happening, this lane not being pushed is why nothing's happening. Like it is the reason why. In 80% of games, if that lane is not getting pushed properly, that nothing's happening in the game. Like
I love it. This is so freaking
just cool. If you're like confused and you're like, don't really know what I can do right now, just automatically default to this lane. And if it's not getting pushed, go push it.
Push the safe lane, basically.
Yes. That's like your default. Like that should be like, I don't know what to do right now. Go do that. If nobody else is doing it. In your bracket, nobody's gonna do it. Like imagine this fight if one of their heroes wasn't there. That's all I look at it. Like, imagine if you had forced someone bottom first and taken the exact same fight you're taking right now.
A lot better.
It's gonna be better no matter what. It's just like, it could be a lot better. It could be a little bit better. You could still lose, but it's the same thing as the lane where it's like, I'm setting you up with the optimal, parameters for a good fight. Yeah. So your fights you're taking are actually... Go ahead. I saw the dual breath.
I missed the dual breath. I was like, I'm not used to his turning speed. I'm just like,
Jakiro's turn rate and movement speed and cast animations, they're all bad. Yeah, they're all...
It's different. Yeah, it's takes some time, but it's very satisfying when you get him right.
Yeah, no, Jakiro, I think Jakiro's similar to CM, where mechanically, once you get used to him, very straightforward, but then there's a lot of different things you can do on the hero. So, right now, let's see what's going on. Okay.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
So, the next concept we're going to talk about, and just for the record, we're going to probably wrap up in the next 15 minutes or so.
Yes, that's correct. Okay.
So,
course.
I also try to make sure I don't like freak you the hell out with all the things I think about.
No, this has been super helpful. Maybe on the last 5 minutes, Coach B, I can wrap up what I've absorbed from you, just so
absolutely.
That would be a good way to
Okay,
end.
so to be clear, Dota is very much so many things happen in the same order every game, okay? And so a lot of people don't realize this. There's a default to the way Dota works, and there's exceptions. And the exceptions we'll worry about later. At the 1K level, if we can get you to understand the default, if you're executing that well, you'll climb no problem. Like, I'm actually 100... Like, you'll have to start worrying about the exceptions later when people start doing the proper things to stop you and all that kind of stuff. But...
Nice.
Just like in lane, where I told you the ideal is to pull every lane... You're not going to have to learn any better than that until the opponent's support is high enough MMR to stop you, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
So, the way Dota works is 90% of games, you're going to kill their safe lane tower first.
Yes.
You're then going to push this lane in, and then rotate to their mid tower. This tower could die, whatever. Like, what happens with this tower doesn't matter. So, this tower is going to die, then you're going to rotate to mid tower. At that point, you're then going to be playing around mid and bottom. Like, that's what's going to be happening. And your next objective that you're going to make a big move on will be Roche. Like, you might take the tier 2s, but it's never like a 5-man smoke gank to get the tier 2. Your next, like, group up 5-man objective is going to be Roche. Okay? So you take the 2 tier 1s, and you're going to be pushing bottom and mid. So at this point where you've now taken 2 tier 1s, you see see what's happened here? So earlier I told you to take this tier 1 and make sure bottom was always pushed in before you went mid.
Okay.
Now, we want to our best capability. Like, I'm not, like, this is where you learn your own limits and stuff. We want bottom and mid always shoved in. So if you don't know what to do in the game, you should shove these 2 waves. Like, if somebody's not doing it, you're doing it. Okay? So that's when you'll start learning how far I can move up to push this wave. How far can I push the wave, like, where I don't just die? Maybe I needed items to help me push the wave. Like, if I had a Force Staff, I could have survived and helped me push the wave. But
what's the best item for pushing waves, Coach?
So on some heroes, it can be... Okay, let me think about this. As a support, it's literally whatever makes me not die. Or gives me the mana.
Glimmer.
Yeah, so like on some heroes their only limitation is mana. So like maybe you could go like Yule Scepter or whatever. Like on Bristleback I go Soul Ring so I can make sure I clear waves with my quills because I need mana. On most supports, ensuring that I just don't die is what I'm going for. So I'm like, I think I need a Force or I need a Glimmer or a Yule's. Like, you just make the guess for yourself and just buy an item that makes me not die. If you think there's no item you need to not die, great, go for some team item that helps everybody, which in this case you're going for Greaves. As I look at a support, my first priority is making sure I'm not feeding piece of crap. Like, because even if I have a team item, if I'm just dead, my team item doesn't do anything. So, but then, so once I've worried about not being a feeding piece of crap, then I'll buy whatever team item, I want. So Greaves are great. But I'll always consider the Glimmers, the Yules, the Force Staff, the Blinks, the, whatever. So in this case, all I'm telling you is, at this point right here, where you guys want to fight... Where is it here? You want to fight, and then you took mid.
Yes.
Right now, your immediate thought should be, we need bottom and mid to be pushed in. Like, that's what we need. To get our next objective, those 2 lanes should always be pushed in. This is when you're ahead, right? Like, this is when you're ahead. So... Yeah,
ideal.
Yeah, like, notice how you have more towers than they do. So we're not going to have we're not going to have some perfect formula. I'm going to tell you have more towers than they do, let's assume you're ahead.
Yes.
So, right now, I think to myself, okay, bottom needs to be pushed. Bristleback, already there. I don't need to go bottom. So, great. Don't need to go there. Mid lane, it's already getting pushed. So, Ricky wants to fight, sure, I'll go help him out. Like, whatever. Like, it's already getting pushed. Both of those are taken care of. Cool. Let's go on your player perspective real quick. All this fighting's going on, cool. Both lanes were getting pushed, great. Now, you are in a spot right now where we then have to ask ourselves the exact same question we just asked ourselves when you killed the tier 1. Is bottom or mid getting pushed? And for you, if one of them or both of them is not getting pushed,
I have to do it.
You have to do it, and you choose the one closest to you. Right?
So it's mid.
So like right now, I would implore all support players to clear that mid wave. And in terms to how you do it, meaning is it casting dual breath? Is it casting dual breath and liquid fire? Is it that you're so scared to clear that wave, you need to macro pyre that shit? You do it.
Yeah, why not?
You do it, okay? Macro pyre, pretty low cooldown, 60 seconds.
Yeah, 60.
Right?
That's nothing.
Yeah. So the idea for you as a player to learn and grow is to understand how far up you're allowed to be, and how exactly you're gonna tackle the problem of pushing that mid wave. Mm-hmm. If you can't walk outside of your tower range, then you better sit around mid until it pushes into your lane, and then shove it. You know, like whatever you think that is, that limit, and all that's gonna happen is you're gonna be like, I think it was right here, and it's gonna work, and you're like, great. Or I think it's right here, and then I feed. You know, I think it's right here, and then I feed. You're like, okay, maybe it was back there. You know, so that's a very, very straightforward thing that I next time I watch your game, I really want to see the emphasis on making sure lanes are shoved. Notice how when you were bottom
at the dead lane, at the safe lane,
yes,
right?
Right.
Yeah. Why is it called the dead lane?
The idea of the dead lane is that you can't farm 3 lanes. So if you farm 3 lanes, like past 15 minutes, you're so separated that the opponent can just pick you off. So you have to choose one lane to not play around.
And if they're farming 3, if they're doing that at my level, which sometimes will probably happen,
absolutely,
or more often, then I can it's a free kill.
You should try to kill them. Yeah, that's a great opportunity to be like, hey team, like let's go kill this guy. Don't tell them why. Don't tell them why. Yeah. You know, just if you see 3 heroes in 3 different lanes. Yeah.
This is not an ideal setup. This is the principles that work. BSJ told me we should do this. Like, shut the fuck up.
Okay, so beautiful thing is when you're in a game like this, and I tell you your objective is mid lane and bottom lane, if you see the opponent split farming, where are you probably killing them?
If I see... sorry, can you say that again,
If your
Coach?
objective, like I told you, after those 2 tier 1s, is to just have bottom lane and mid lane pushed in, where should you be killing them?
Where should I be killing... okay, one last... I'm going to try to get this properly.
Your objective is to push mid lane and bottom lane. Where will we kill them if we are going to kill them?
If we're going to... either, wherever they are. Like
in the bottom or mid lane.
Bottom and mid lane, yes.
Like, the point is, these are... I'm telling you, after you take those 2 tier 1s, your goal is to have mid and bottom pushed in. So the heroes you're killing, it only matters to kill them if they're stopping you from pushing bottom or mid. If they're anywhere else, I don't care. Why are we killing them? Like, the point is, like, if you were to go into their triangle right now and kill them, like, this is the triangle, these 3 camps. If bottom and mid are just these 3 camps, they call it the triangle on both sides, just because it's, you know, it's like, this is like dire jungle, radiant triangle, dire triangle. It's just like a terminology to.
Yeah, I hear it a lot. I just never knew what it means. I'm like, where's the triangle?
Yeah, triangle is this on dire, this on radiant, because it's 3 camps, right? There's not too many complicated things in Dota when you hear the lore or whatever.
I got you.
My point is, if you guys go kill them here, and these 2 lanes aren't pushed, what are you getting off of it? Like, are you getting... You're not getting anything. You're not getting any towers. Maybe Roche, but, like... the point is, if you're pushing both of these 2 lanes, if any of them die, you're going to kill their tower. Like, that's what's going to happen. And if they keep bringing people to defend that tower and they keep dying, great. But the point is, I want to see these 2 lanes pushed. Earlier, when you took this tier 1...
Yeah.
I wanted this lane pushed so that you could go mid, right? This time, you rotated from here. Like, you had 18 minutes, you were right here.
Yes.
You rotated from here to here. What's the same problem happening again?
Yeah, it needed to be pushed.
Right?
I should have pushed before rotating.
Yeah, so imagine if you can get in your own head, like, I'm going to push this lane before I rotate. And what happens is, if you guys get kills here, and this lane is at this tier 2, you may be like, hey, guys, let's go kill tier 2 mid. You know, but after this, if you guys get kills, right now, say you guys get kills,
Yeah.
What do you think one of your teammates is going to do immediately? Aren't they just going to TP mid and farm this? Like,
maybe.
Like,
yeah.
Aren't they going to be like, wow, there's 8 creeps underneath this tower. Let's go farm it. And then it's like you got kills to go farm underneath your own tower. Like that. That's what you effectively got off of the kill. So we're trying to make that not happen. So I'm curious. You're not meant to make this answer right, okay? You're not meant to. Okay. You're not meant to get this answer right.
I love this. I love this. Yeah.
What is the number one indicator? This applies to the laning stage. This applies to the mid game, the late game. What is the number one indicator of who is ahead in a well-played Dota game?
What is the number one indicator in regards to who is ahead in a Dota game?
Yeah, I'm saying if both teams are playing correctly, what is the number one indicator of who is ahead?
Who has more towers?
Close. It is whose lanes are pushed to the other side of the map.
Yes.
So that usually indicates more towers are dying. But my point is, if you are ahead, this lane should never look like this. It should never be pushed into your tower. If you watch a high-level game, feel free. Feel free to watch.
Yeah. Yes.
The amount of times where a team that is ahead has lanes shoved into their tower. It's at least 2 out of 3 lanes are in the other team's base. Like, they're at the other team's base.
It's an invasion.
Yes.
It's an invasion.
So if you're ahead...
We're taking their homes.
Yes.
Like, no, wait, that's a bad joke. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. You gotta be careful with that one. Maybe too soon or whatever.
I was going to go there.
But the good thing is, if I told you your objective is bottom and mid, what that means for you is most of the good fights that are going to happen are bottom and mid. And this is a fight that's happening between bottom and mid. It's usually going to be a good fight. If you watch games closely, if you're ahead on Dire, 90% of bad fights are happening here. They're all happening here. That's where most of the bad fights are going to happen. Very rarely do you see Dire winning and them losing fights down here, and opposite on Radiant. It's just because Radiant's usually playing around there, and Dire's usually playing around here. So
because we're trying to kill our safe lane.
Yes.
We're all trying to take the safe lane mid. Basically.
Yes. 1K dead lane concept realized. So
mind-blowing, Coach.
Yeah. So what the point is, it's quite possible to win a fight in your jungle, and it's quite possible for the opponent to beat you down here. But like I said, it's all about the statistically optimal play. So all I'm saying right now is I would ideally like to play around bottom, right? I'm telling you to play around bottom and mid. But your Ricky is currently suffering from I don't know what the dead lane syndrome is, okay?
Yes.
So, the dead lane core concept to you is that you guys get one side lane and mid lane. And those are your 2 lanes. That's what you get, okay? When you're ahead. You get 2 out of 3 lanes, because that's effectively 2 out of, like, 2/3 of the farm on the map. So if one of your cores is intent on playing top, even if you are supposed to play bottom, I want you to know, if you have them playing top and your team is playing bottom, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
The other team could 5-man kill you 4, or they could just 3-man gank the other guy. Somebody's going to die because you're just too far apart. So as a support, your only option is to just accept what your team is choosing to do and play those 2 lanes. And just play those 2. Yeah, so right now, like, I'm going to rewind here. We win the fight.
This is so useful. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. So we win this fight. We win this fight right now, right? You guys just want to fight. Yeah. Based on what I just said, where should you go right now?
Okay, wait. Where am I? I am...
You're mid lane right now. You just want to fight. We're looking at the mini-map here.
We're looking at the mini-map. Our creeps are over here. They're there. I would say that we should... Well, mid looks fine because there are 2 people there, so I should probably push bot.
Okay. I'm going to give you one more chance. So, I told you the dead lane concept revolves around the idea that you can't farm both side lanes at once without dying, because you're simply too far apart. So if you go bottom, what is going to happen? Based on what's happening top.
Oh, because we're already close together. They might pick us off.
They're going to kill Ricky, or they're going to kill you.
Yeah. Yes. So we just push mid together.
And you also, the 2 lanes you are now pushing are mid and top. Do you see that? How like instead of mid and bottom now, it's mid and top. It's always going to be mid plus a side lane. Like that's what it's always going to be. So my point is, I would much rather be bottom. But if one of my cores is choosing to play top, my choice is to play mid or top. Mid or top.
Yes, push mid. Since everyone's here already, the most optimal decision, guys, let's just push mid, Ricky's top.
Yeah, like that's all you got. You're now choosing to play this area. Like that's what you're doing. Because my emphasis is show both side lanes. Even if the opponent doesn't punish you, you're giving them the chance to.
Thank you for pushing me to answer that question. It's
a tough one. It's a tough one. So all I'm saying is notice how separation happened. And even if he didn't die, because the opponent's bad, right? He didn't die over here. Let's just show you.
Radiant structures
I did not. Did I?
Like, he didn't die here, right? But he's getting ganked. And my idea would be, if you were there, they might just die.
Yes.
Like, if your team was there, they could have actually died there, because you guys are up by 5k. And so, you not only could you think of it as, I'm making sure my teammate's not dying, but if they try to kill my teammate, we might have just killed them, you know, like because we're playing together right now. So if you're playing separated in both side lanes, it just leaves potentially bad things to happen, and those are where the throws happen. Like still happens at 6k, 7k. I'm like, guys, you'll eventually learn about the dead lane eventually, even though you're freaking 7,000 MMR. You know,
really?
At the highest level, just to give you an idea, like an AK version of this, is that if my teammate's showing top, I'm not allowed to show bottom, because at my bracket, if we see two heroes showing in side lanes, we'll go kill the other guy. So
That's
I can't.
It's information. It's
I can't give that opponent that information. So there's sometimes where at the highest level he would be showing top, and I can play bottom, but I can't show that I'm bottom. Like I have to play in the jungle or somewhere that the opponent can't see me, because I'm allowed to play away from my teammate, but I can't tell the other team that I'm doing that.
There.
Yeah, like that's like, because at the highest level I have to concern myself with the opponent's reactions to what I'm
making
doing.
the right reactions to punish whatever.
Okay, so I definitely think we've gone far enough. So I'm going to leave this time for your 5 minutes to give your what do you take?
Okay, so coming from this has been super helpful, by the way, Coach B. I think this is a great first session, and I look forward to the next 4.
Cool. Good start.
What I got is I definitely shouldn't, and I'm seeing the mistake of trying too many heroes in the beginning of my Dota journey. You know what I mean? If I try too many, then I'm just like, what needs to be learned, what needs to be sound, you're not giving yourself the chance to learn in the game. So at least pick heroes. If you can pick heroes that teaches you how to react properly in certain situations of the game, then do that. In my case, you're giving me well-rounded heroes, which is Jakiro, Crystal Maiden, and Shadow Shaman, because
and
they
Pugna,
can push
if you
towers.
want to be stylish.
And Pugna, if I wanna be stylish, yes. But Pugna will probably, just based on our conversation, I'm gonna focus on Jakiro, Crystal, or Shadow Shaman, and I like all of them, so that's no problem. I vibe with them very well. So picking these heroes that achieve these objectives fairly well, basically well-rounded heroes, will give you a better shot at improving, because it gives you the tools. These heroes give you the tools to pull off what's necessary to win a Dota game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct?
It's like the difference on Jakiro to Crystal Maiden, for instance, is if I tell you you're supposed to push bottom lane all the time, on Jakiro, you might actually take the tower. But on Crystal Maiden, you're just going to push the creeps, because...
But at least you're doing something. At least you're pushing it. And okay. So so definitely have a hero pool, even just 3 as a beginner like myself. Don't paralyze yourself by getting this information overload by trying to learn so many heroes when you're not even learning the core concepts of what it takes to win a Dota game in general.
Yes.
Okay, so that I got. So coming from this moving forward, I'm going to stick to Jakiro, Crystal Maiden, and Shadow Shaman.
Great.
And you recommend this to any Guardian or Herald player?
I recommend that if you're trying to learn the core concepts of Dota, you have to
minimize all distractions. And I personally, if I've learned about a new concept myself, that still happens at the AK level. Yeah. If I am also playing new heroes, I will just shit the bed. Like, I'll actually just play terribly.
Nothing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's not...
That's a wonderful lesson for beginners, bro. That's a wonderful... I think for anyone watching who's Guardian or Herald or even like, Crusader that just thinks, I think that's just a great thing to take from this session if they're watching. So that for sure, I'm just going to focus moving forward. You're just going to see a Jakiro, Crystal, or Shaman game on our replays next. Sweet. So that's for sure. Okay, in regards to pulling, there are key concepts that need to be... Wait, I wrote this down, but I want to make sure I absorb it. It's better that I don't read it, right? Just
it's hard to remember everything. We went through a lot.
No, but it's important that I don't read it because it's best that I can see what I genuinely absorbed from you. Yeah. I can always read it later as my cheat sheet. In regards to pulling or in the lane, I need to be able to pick my items that I feel is going to help me get into less trouble.
Yeah.
Correct?
Absolutely.
As a support player. And the number one thing is how the main reason you help your core is to make sure that you can be useful for them. And being useful is like just making sure that you're not a useless piece of shit that's not dying all the time. Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As long as I have items that help me do that. With Jakiro, if I have I need a lot of mana. If I have people that use a lot of, I need to cast my spells a lot, then definitely have mana pool, right? Make sure I have good mana that makes me abuse properly. Definitely better movement speed will help me than a stick early in the game, especially with Jakiro. So if as long as I'm very helpful in regards to my carry getting stronger. And there are always times where if he's good, I don't need to babysit him. I don't need to contest. I don't need to make sure that he's not getting ganked at or being pummeled on. I leave and make sure he gets experience.
Yes. Oftentimes it's underneath his own tower.
And oftentimes that's underneath his own tower.
Yeah.
If I'm pulling and I do a successful pull, it's always good to do it at the 15 mark.
Yeah.
Yes?
If possible.
And it's always better to do it 15 than 45 because if not, then you'll have to wait a whole minute to be able to do that again because the creeps haven't respawned.
Absolutely.
And if I can't do it on the 15-minute mark, I can do that quelling or just kill that one tree, right? Just take that one tree and pull from the large camp. At least those are the two most optimal pulls, and I should focus on doing that the best possible
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
I got that. So I'm going to keep doing that as well. The next thing I should worry about if I manage to do a successful pull at 14 is to see if the other support is pulling the large camp towards their wave.
Yep. That's also synergizing with the fact that you're not taking XP from your carry on your tower.
And I'm doing two things at once, which is great because usually, and most people at that level maybe don't, but if I manage to always prevent them from doing that by getting the aggro towards me, my wave will always be near our towers.
Absolutely.
Right?
And then you're just winning the lane. Yeah.
Then we're winning the lane. That gets us to win that lane. I think those are pretty much the most core concepts. And item builds, I think I'm going to figure that out in regards to what items help me with Jakiro. And I'm going to discover that just by playing more. But I think one of the most important things as well moving forward is the dead lane concept.
Yeah.
I should always be pushing waves from mid and bottom. Correct? Yeah. Safely.
We will go in more depth as this 5 weeks goes on, but that is what I want you to primarily absorb from today.
If you see me pushing lanes with the replays that we're gonna watch next Saturday or your Friday, then you're like, okay, you're getting the key concepts. Yeah, right,
that's a step that's a major step in the right direction.
That's a major step. So I will always push the safe lane, always try to get that tower going, always try to get those creep waves as much as possible without dying.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that and the best way to know what items will help me is as long as I have items that make sure I don't die to push these creep waves, that is the correct item.
Yep. Yes. Or that gives you like enough mana to do the clearing. Like those are the two limitations. Enough mana.
Because in some cases, maybe they're not really going to go on me when I'm pushing a creep wave, correct?
Exactly.
The only reason I get a Force Staff or a Glimmer is because maybe they always go at me when I push bottom safe or if I push mid.
Absolutely. And if somebody else on your team is doing it, then you don't necessarily have to do it, right?
That is true.
The point is that you're doing things that your team's not already doing for you. Because you're filling in the gaps, right?
Filling in the gaps. Always push before you rotate.
Yep.
Whatever thing, if I'm in mid, if I'm in safe lane, their safe lane, I always push before I move. If we take a tower, always push the creeps again, and then you go mid to try to take the mid tower.
Absolutely.
I think that's freaking everything so far. I think those were the key things that I think I needed to get to just play better.
Yeah, I think there's like you can honestly write down like a little sticky note or whatever and put it on your computer screen on the like far left that says like, pull at 15 and then check big camp, and then like in the mid game it's like take bottom tower, then mid tower, or like push lane then mid tower. Like you can have
these basic things.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea for like the first 3 or 4 games, because every time you find yourself like, what am I doing? Make sure mid and bottom are pushed. Oh yeah, and then you look at the bottom and then you look at the mini map. I'm
gonna put your image. I'm gonna put your face on it, Coach.
Yikes! do the shaven version.
I'm gonna find when you're just looking like that. I'm like, all right, Coach B, he's looking in my face. I gotta do it. He's looking me in the eye. Okay. So I got that. So a sticky note guide that basically the basic key things that I just mentioned, just so that it imprints, right? So that I just kind of hammer it. So that
the goal is eventually you don't have to think about it. Eventually these are automatic thoughts where they're not taking up your time in your brain. You're just doing them.
Okay. Yeah. And coming from this, I think the next question that we can tackle is, when do we roast once we achieve these objectives?
Absolutely.
Correct?
That'll be a big one. That'll be the next step.
That would be a big one. When do we roast, and how do we capitalize from getting roast? I think is also another question.
That's a big one that people have come to my channel with, and there's a lot of throws that happen when it comes to utilizing.
Yeah, because I mean, judging from watching Dota games for all these years, a lot of things kind of turn the tide just by roast. It happens in the roast.
Huge objective.
Just like,
yeah.
Okay, Coach B, this has been fun, man.
Right on.
I have learned a lot, and
you have good questions.
I will take this with me. What's that?
I said you ask good questions, so it makes it easier.
Thank you very much. And I've enjoyed this first session, and I look forward to the next 4, bro.
Right on. I'll see you next time then.
All right, man. Take care. Wait. Okay. Did I forget anything? No, I didn't. We're all good, buddy. We're all good, man.
See you next week.
Thank you, Coach V. Thank you so much.
Make me proud.
All right, I will.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. Something we'll be doing every week for the next 5 weeks.